Chapter 1531. This array formation shone brightly and illuminated the sky. Vast waves of dermic powers surged out like thousands of layers of giant waves. A single strand of dermic powers was enough to stop and kill a nascent soul realm cultivator. It was a defensive formation and an offensive formation. Moreover, it was of a very high level. They were both quasi-divine formations. To be able to set up 2 layers of quasi-divine formations in such a short period of time could be said to be world-shaking and peerless. Jiang Tian was very calm. He was not in a hurry to make a move. Instead, he waited for him to finish arranging the formation. The third art of the 9 laws of the Kunpeng, crack the heavens. Jiang Tian shouted in a low voice. With a whoosh, Jiang Tian turned into a 10-li-long stream of light and disappeared from where he stood. The huge meteorite under his feet instantly cracked into countless pieces. It was actually directly cut apart by the terrifying spatial crack. And that was only the aftermath of the Kunpeng's Dharma laws. A beautiful arc of light suddenly lit up in the outer realm battlefield. The dimension cracked and the world changed color. It seemed that the sun, moon, and stars on the 100-mile battlefield had been cut by Jiang Tian's bright arc. The power of the Kunpeng breaking the dimensional laws was unimaginable, and not even the 2 quasi-divine arrays could stop it. Under Jiang Tian's Kunpeng laws, they were as weak as paper. They were forcefully torn apart, and the countless talisman formations and light instantly dimmed. Those battleships, ancient weapons, and Dharma artifacts all exploded and turned back into scrap metal. 3 of them floated in the air. Okay. Divine Emperor Hanshi was shocked. He didn't expect that his 2 quasi-god-grade formations would perform another hand seal, the Tao character of the 9 great heavenly arts, allowing him to flee into an alternate dimension and vanish without a trace. But Jiang Tian had already followed him and disappeared almost at the same time. After 3 flicks, the dimension cracked again. Divine Emperor Hanshi abruptly jumped out of the alternate dimension like a rabbit being chased by a wolf, battered and exhausted. The dragon robe on his body had long been torn into shreds, and his armor was completely shattered. His body was covered in countless wounds, and his divine treasures had collapsed. Black smoke billowed, and the flames of the vermilion bird law soared into the sky and melted everything. The law of thunder and lightning exploded from time to time, and even the galaxy crystal sand and the law of thick earth smashed wildly. All in all, it was a mess and extremely miserable. The god in the divine treasures was full of holes and half dead. He staggered and roared as if he were drunk. Indeed, Jiang Tian followed him into the void, continuously displaying the most powerful natural laws, attacking explosively one after another, making it impossible for him to defend himself, suffering a miserable fate. In fact, it would have been better if he hadn't gone into the alternate dimension. He would have been restrained if he had. His movement character art was only an incomplete heaven art. His spatial manipulation technique could not be compared to Jiang Tian's Kunpeng law. It was like a crippled person trying to compete with Usain Bolt in running. Swordsman. Divine Emperor Hanshi's body was bleeding profusely. His bones and tendons were broken, and even the god had been severely injured. At this moment, his eyes were filled with fear as he roared and performed heavenly arts. The swordsman art was a healing secret, one of the 9 great heavenly arts. Any injury, even if it was caused by a great Tao attack, could be healed. He had just condensed his body and didn't even have time to repair his god and divine treasures. The Tao artifacts on his body were mostly shattered. He could clearly sense that he was unable to resist Jiang Tian's several supreme laws, which were attacking him in a frenzy. Look at my Tao artifact. He took out a palm-sized square purple gold shield. This purple gold shield was made of supreme-grade Tao mark purple gold. It was the pride of the divine craftsman hall in the ruins of immortality. It took hundreds of years of hard work from countless formation and rune grandmasters. It was densely packed and inscribed with countless talisman formations. Once it was unleashed, it split into 8 and expanded with the wind to a radius of 10 meters. It blocked all directions and completely enveloped the entire body, seamlessly sealing off all gaps. He used the shield to protect his body and rushed into the distance. Looking down, he should be in the direction of the Tianhuang sect. He wanted to use the World Cave teleportation array there to escape. The eighth law of the Kunpeng yin and yang splitting. Facing this, Jiang Tian's face was still calm. He pointed his finger in the air, forming a round and curved arc, just like the dividing line of the yin-yang Tai Chi diagram. This point of his contained boundless destructive spatial laws. It was like a fragrant elephant crossing a river, like a true dragon dancing in the sky, and it charged out from an inconceivable angle. It was like the cycle of Tai Chi, and it actually easily slashed apart the violet gold shield. Then, it easily pierced through the divine treasures of divine Emperor Hanshi and tore a terrible crack on the god. It's terrifying. This ultimate assassination technique interferes with space and follows the heart. It's like a miracle. In the Penglai world, countless overlords trembled and sighed in amazement. They were both afraid and respectful, as if they had seen a god. There was an unprecedented light in Ghost Wolf's gloomy eyes, as if he had seen a peerless beauty in front of him. He stared at Jiang Tian's every move without blinking, trying to remember all the details when he broke open the space. This would give him extreme inspiration in controlling space. He might be able to transcend and reach an unimaginable height. Ah! Divine Emperor Hanshi screamed. This time, he fell from the first level of the soul formation realm again, and the fragments of the great Tao in his god all cracked. He roared crazily and his Dharma power surged, but it was to no avail. Jiang Tian used the space assassination Tao, which contained divine-level laws. He had already been severely injured and his god was about to collapse. If he continued to fight, he might not be able to return to his peak in this lifetime. How should I escape? He ran crazily and used the Xing art. He ran 100 miles in one step and rushed toward the crystal wall. Let the divine generals block it. I can still go back. I was too impulsive this time. I shouldn't have gone in alone. He finally calmed down and threw out 18 quasi-doctrine artifacts in a row, trying to stop Jiang Tian from intercepting him. Each doctrine artifact was made by a soul formation grand cultivator and contained the power of a soul formation grand cultivator. It was like a soul formation grand cultivator attacking Jiang Tian 18 times in a row. He believed that as long as he returned to the Hylon world, the fortress there would definitely be able to stop Jiang Tian. Besides, there were 4 or 5 soul formation grand cultivators in that world and they weren't much weaker than him. Kid, you'd better not let me get away. Otherwise, I'll make you wish you were dead. God Emperor Hanshi burned his god blood essence and forcefully broke through the boundary crystal wall, heading straight for Fallen Leaf Lake. Unfortunately, he soon saw something that made his hair stand on end. Jiang Tian was already waiting for him down there. He didn't even see when Jiang Tian broke the barrier and entered that world. There were no space fluctuations at all. Tai Chu, let me go this time. We can sit down and talk. I can agree to any of your conditions. Divine Emperor Hanshi was dumbfounded. He activated his divine powers to protect his body with golden thunderbolts and tried to beg with his immortal will. Unfortunately, Jiang Tian ignored him. A glint of coldness and mockery flashed in his eyes and he waved his fingers. 9 laws of Kunpeng, the 9th law. Open the chaos. That was the highest level of derivative law that Jiang Tian had comprehended when he was studying the laws of Kunpeng. Besides, when he became the god of Hongmeng in his previous life, he had also opened up the universe and separated the chaos, becoming the god of creation like Pangu. So, the laws of space shattering that were derived from primal chaos splitting contained a trace of the aura of the god laws and heaven Tao that gods of creation used to split the primal chaos apart, and it was supreme and peerlessly formidable. Everyone was shocked to see that as Jiang Tian waved his fingers, the dimension seemed to have come alive. Chapter 1532. As Jiang Tian's white fingertips swept across the air, the dimension seemed to have a mind of its own. It was pushed to the sides and was divided into 2 halves. In the middle was the deepest and most empty absolute void. That scene was like the divine artifact in the hands of the supreme heavenly venerate Tao ancestor before the chaos was created. It split the void, divided yin and yang and broke the chaos. Swish! That law was invisible. After Jiang Tian waved his 2 fingers, he retracted his hand calmly without any energy. However, the vast and surging tide of gold qi, as well as the bearing lightning dragons and serpents, which carried the traces of the great Tao, suddenly cracked in midair. The incomparably condensed dermic powers instantly dissipated. Just as Hanshi godly emperor's body took a step back, he suddenly froze. A crack slowly appeared on his body, penetrating through his divine treasures, physical body, body armor, and dragon robe. Finally, it completely split him in half. The 17th grandson of the Emperor of the Ruins, a second-level soul formation overlord and one of the 10 divine emperors of the ruins of deities, Divine Emperor Hanshi, had died. At the moment of Hanshi Shenhuang's death, Penglai, Hailan, fertile land, ruins of immortals, the great ways of heaven and earth rumbled and trembled. Heaven and earth resonated with each other. Gloomy winds howled in the sky like ghosts crying and wolves howling. Thunder rumbled and heavy rain poured down. It seemed that heaven and earth were angry, crying and crying. The nascent soul had become an extremely powerful god after growing strong and sublimating to the extreme. It also took a fragment of the great Tao and stored it inside, gaining the approval of the great Tao in the world, as if it were a child born by the world. In fact, the soul formation level was based on the principle of the formation of Khanate gods to become acquired gods. Once a soul formation cultivator died, it would definitely trigger the connection between heaven and man, which was 100 times more obvious than the death of a nascent soul cultivator. It was as if the world had sensed the death of its son. Of course, it would be sad, angry, and uneasy. At this moment, the billions of gods and cultivators of the Penglai world, including the ignorant mortals, naturally felt grief, shock, and fear in their hearts. That was the power of a soul formation cultivator. This was the effect of the death of a divine transformation realm cultivator. At that moment, the 100 Moon Academy, Sky Palace, Ruins Emperor's Palace, the 6 Grotto Heavens, the many huge cities, the teachers, the Sword God, and the Star Lords, as well as countless experts, all flew out of their doors. They looked in shock at the tiny and dark planet in the sky that was revolving around a slightly larger planet. They had also sensed it, and there was no need for them to use the soul tablet to detect it. They felt the fall of the world shaking godly emperor. I can feel it. The headmaster clutched his chest and showed a pained expression. He sighed and said, "It seems that divine Emperor Hanshi has fallen. He died for Chunyu. This Kong Teichu is so vicious." The entire Ruins Emperor's hall was shaken. Countless members of the imperial family, dukes, and ministers were furious in their hearts. They had sorrowful expressions as they slammed the table and roared furiously, and they seemed as if they were about to swallow someone up. A star that once shone brightly in the ruins of immortality, a star that illuminated the ancient times, dimmed and descended. Could it be that our ruins of immortality is really going to be defeated by this demon? In Sky Palace, Sky River Star King looked at the falling meteor in the sky. He looked very sad. Beside him, Prince Xiahe was tearing up. In Penglai, the people who had witnessed all this with their own eyes were 10 times more shocked. What? Divine Emperor Hanshi has fallen. He killed him. Seeing this scene, the divine generals of the White Tiger Guards were dumbfounded. They couldn't believe it, and their faces were full of fear, as if they had seen a demon. As for Jiang Tian, after killing divine Emperor Hanshi, he made a hand seal and erased the traces of the great path that had begun to weaken in his storage bag. He then took out the bodies, golden cores, and divine souls of Zhang Qingyang and Sword Master Ao Tian. Jiang Tian made a hand seal, and the divine souls and golden cores entered their bodies. The two of them opened their eyes as if they had come back from the dead. They looked a little weak and their limbs were stiff. Senior Tai Chu has killed divine Emperor Hanshi. Congratulations, Senior. The two of them looked confused for a while, then they were delighted. They hurriedly bowed and said gratefully, "Thank you for saving our lives, Senior. This disciple will never forget your great kindness." Jiang Tian didn't say anything. He patted the sky-swallowing demon gourd and 2 Budian pills and 2 soul recovery pills flew out towards the two of them. Thank you for the pills, Senior. The moment the two of them saw this pill, they knew that it was of a high level. It wasn't a heavenly pill, but it was at least at the level of Tao pills and true pills. It was priceless. They were so excited that their bodies were trembling. Sword Honorable Ao Tian was even crying. Without saying a word, they immediately swallowed the medicinal pills and flew down towards the falling leaf lake. Then, Jiang Tian didn't hesitate at all. He turned the divine disc behind him and used the law of Tao Tai. He swallowed the divine Emperor Hanshi's body, divine treasures, and deities before they completely exploded. An ordinary deity's essence, qi, and energy far exceeded that of 1,000 Yuanine deities. Jiang Tian was prepared to devour them and use them to increase his cultivation. He wouldn't even let go of their flesh, blood, qi, and divine treasures. If a moralist saw this, he would probably curse and reprimand Jiang Tian's method of devouring the blood essence and cultivation of others was too cruel and lawless, and it went against the harmony of the heavens. He could be called a devil amongst devils. However, Jiang Tian had always been going against the laws of nature, so he didn't need to follow the will of the world. As far as Jiang Tian was concerned, no matter if it was demon cultivation, immortal cultivation, or devil cultivation, in the end, they were all methods of obtaining and utilizing strength. There was no such thing as good or evil. It all depended on how you used your power. Who were you fighting for? What were you fighting for? What were you fighting for? Besides, the ruins of deity were about to invade. Jiang Tian had no choice. If he showed mercy and pretended not to improve his power, he wouldn't die. It wasn't just a matter of him dying. Earth and the entire solar system's dimensional worlds were going to suffer. Bang! Jiang Tian looked down and flicked his fingers. The three blades formed from the law of gung metal crossed a distance of 10,000 miles and spun like invisible heavenly blades. Crack, crack, crack. The shackles on Long Xingnan, Ghost Wolf, and Bai Mushue's bodies were instantly struck. After holding on for 5 seconds, they let out an unwilling cry and finally broke. Kill them! The time array disc flew out with a whoosh. Jiang Tian sat cross-legged in the void with a calm expression like an old monk in meditation. He directly refined the divine treasures and blood essence of the world-shaking divine emperor. Brothers, we had a good fight just now. Let's settle the score. Ghost Wolf smiled and shook his body to break free from the shackles. He reached out his right hand and the void piercer appeared in his hand. He then attacked Mo Yang and the others. Kill! Long Xingnan also leaped out. Her nascent embryo rumbled and her nascent soul roared. 9 true dragons of natural laws rushed forward. A moment later, golden blood spilled all over the ground and the bodies of a few divine generals fell to the ground. Even their bodies, nascent souls and divine souls, had been killed by the two of them. Seeing this scene, countless people felt their hearts skip a beat. The sect master of the Heavenly Wolf sect immediately knelt on the ground and kowtowed to Jiang Tian, begging him to spare his life. Jade Lady sect, Sunset Beauty sect's old sect leader, Maple City's city lord, and other big shots of this world also came one after another to kowtow to Jiang Tian. Oh my god, this is too scary. He's not going to kill me, is he? Amidst the crowd, Wang Hailing, the young master of Maple City, was already trembling in fear. His soul almost left his body, and he almost fainted. He had never thought that the young man he met outside the city would be the famous fiend Kong Teichu and that his so-called maid would be the saintess of the dragon clan, Long Xingen. And now, they had even killed the divine Emperor Hanshi and many divine generals. But he, a foundation establishment cultivator, had actually coveted Long Xingnan's beauty. This was a great offense. It was a capital offense. Chapter 1533. However, Jiang Tian didn't argue with him. After he swallowed divine Emperor Hanshi's divine treasures and body, Jiang Tian felt the true essence in his body surging. If it turned into some kind of energy, it would immediately push his golden core to the peak stage of the golden core level. At this time, he suddenly opened his eyes and shouted, "You're the one who saved me. City lords of the Red Maple City, the Water Cloud City, the Black Sea City and the Broken Blade City, please come forward." I'm here. Divine Emperor of the Taichu sect, please tell us what to do. Su Muzha and the others were startled, but they didn't dare to disobey. They hurried to the lake and knelt on the ground again. They were all city lords of medium and large cities. They ruled over thousands of people and were all powerful golden core perfected cultivators. Their words carried a lot of weight and they were like local emperors. And yet, they didn't dare to disobey Jiang Tian. They could only kneel on the ground and tremble like rabbits in front of a wolf. In fact, Jiang Tian was only a nascent soul cultivator and some of the golden core cultivators hadn't even reached the nascent soul level. However, since Jiang Tian had killed Divine Emperor Hanshi, it proved that he was as powerful as a soul formation cultivator. In their eyes, he was the supreme soul formation cultivator and could be called a grand cultivator or a divine lord. The sect masters of the Flying Cloud Valley, the Fiery Phoenix sect, the Liaoyuan sect, the Thunder-Shocking sect and the Shenyu Palace, please come forward. Jiang Tian sat cross-legged in the air. His expression was calm as he spoke. We're here, at your command, senior. Some people still wanted to suck up to him, but some sect masters and city lords couldn't help it anymore. They cried, Senior Taichu, please spare our lives. We pretended to be the Taichu Vanguard Army and committed crimes everywhere. We were forced by the divine generals of the White Tiger Guards. It was their idea to use the Black Stone Association as a platform to collect offerings in the name of protecting cultivators and mortals. We are innocent. That's right. The leaders of those sects and cities were the culprits, planners, and executors who had committed crimes in the name of Jiang Tian. What was even more despicable was that they had done evil with one hand and pretended to do good with the other to make a fortune. You insulted my reputation, destroyed my image, and framed me. Their crimes are punishable by the extermination of their entire family and 9 generations. Jiang Tian scanned the crowd and said calmly, Some of you were indeed forced by others. I have always been kind and benevolent. Today, I will be lenient and only kill you, the main culprits. I will not implicate your sects and families. Do you have anything to say? Are you convinced? We have no objections. The sect masters of the Jade Lady sect and the Sunset Beauty sect, as well as Sword Venerable Ao Tian of the Heaven Baron sect, stayed out of the matter and expressed their support by bowing. Su Muzha and the other city lords and sect masters could only cry in their hearts as endless regret filled their hearts. They never would have thought that Jiang Tian's strength was actually so formidable. Even Divine Sovereign Hanshi was crushed when he came in person. Only the sect master of the Liaoan sect begged, Senior Taichu, please forgive us this time. We were really forced to do this. When an avalanche happens, not a single snowflake is innocent. Jiang Tian remained unmoved and said mockingly, It seems that you were forced and didn't have a choice, but in fact, you still have a choice. Even if you can't stand on the side of justice like by Mushue, you can still withdraw and don't associate yourself with evil. Seeing Jiang Tian mentioned by Mushue, everyone looked over enviously and realized that this woman would probably soar into the sky in the future. Bai Mushue was also excited and hot blood surged in her soft chest. She straightened her back and bowed with her fists. It's true that the ruins of deity coerced us, but as long as we have justice in our hearts, even if we can't speak up for justice, we can at least remain silent. Their actions of slandering Senior Taichu are indeed sinister and despicable. They deserve to be killed. Ghost Wolf, go to the Liaoyuan sect and exterminate them. Don't leave any survivors of their sect master's family. Jiang Tian said. But I know I was wrong. I'll explode my golden core right now to atone for my sins and apologize to the world. The sect master of the Liaoyuan sect almost cried. He had never thought that he would bring about a disaster with just a simple quibble. Unfortunately, it was too late for him to say anything. Once Jiang Tian's words were spoken, how could he take back his words? Yes, master. Ghost Wolf didn't say anything. He flapped his black feather robe and turned into a black ray that pierced through the sky. He broke through the void and headed for the Prairie Fire sect. Do you still want to wait for me to do it? Jiang Tian's expression was calm. His cold gaze swept across the few evil leaders as he asked indifferently. Senior Tai Chu is fair. I know I deserve to die for my sins. Su Muzha was the first to decide to kill himself. Before he died, he turned around and looked at the disciples of the Su family in Maple City. Remember, I deserve what I get today. Don't be angry or take revenge. Disband the family immediately and return to the fields. With that, he activated a spell and his golden core exploded. His physical body turned into a bloody mist and a rain of flesh and blood rained down. His divine soul instantly turned into green smoke and ashes. Some of the disciples of the Su family knelt on the ground in fear and some sobbed. The air was filled with despair and sadness. Jiang Tian wanted to laugh in his heart. The Su family did not even have a few decent golden core realm cultivators. How could they be qualified to seek revenge from him? Su Muzha was clearly putting on a show for her to hear. Even though it was pitiful, it was completely unnecessary. After that, the other sect leaders and city lords also self-destructed their golden cores and died by the lake to atone for their sins. Their golden cores were also blown up, and there were broken bones and blood everywhere. It was a mess and extremely bloody. Jiang Tian glanced at everyone and said calmly, "From now on, Sword Master Ao Tian will be the lord of this world and he will control the cultivation world. Bai Muxue will be the empress and she will control the mortal world. Do you have any objections?" "We have no objections. We obey your order, Divine Lord." Many golden core perfected cultivators, sect masters and city lords knelt and agreed without hesitation. They didn't dare to disobey at all. Some were emotional. Kong Teichu was really too powerful. The spirit qi in this world was more abundant and there were more spirit veins and blessed lands. There were many sects and large sections. For thousands of years, there had been a lot of fighting and killing among each other, unlike the dragon sect in the Ingzhou world, where the world respected the world. However, Jiang Tian had only been here for a few hours and he had already established his authority by killing the divine Emperor Hanshi. At this time, he had unified this world with a single order, just like an ancient divine emperor. What he said was the supreme decree of the heavens and nobody dared to question it. Some smart cultivators immediately talked to Bai Muxue and Sword Master Ao Tian with their immortal will, congratulating them and sucking up to them, hoping to get some benefits in the future. But there were also a few grand cultivators who thought they were the only one who was sober when everyone else was drunk, so they sneered. Whether it was through the portal array or interstellar ships, the cultivators from the ruins of deities would always have a way to get there and they would soon cause more trouble. Kong Teichu would definitely die. Even though Kong Teichu was powerful, he was only a nascent soul cultivator and the one he killed was only a soul formation cultivator, the divine Emperor Hanshi. Other than that, there were 9 divine emperors in the ruins of deities, who were as powerful as the divine Emperor Hanshi. There were also 100 soul formation cultivators, including the Master of the Academy, the Sword God and the Star Lord, who were even more powerful, and the mysterious ancestral Emperor of the Ruins. With so many peerless overlords attacking together, how many lives did Kong Teichu have left? Once Kong Teichu died, Bai Muxue and Sword Master Ao Tian would definitely be punished. They would probably become the shortest-lived empress and the lord of the realms and eventually die. These sects and forces that were eager to show their loyalty would not have a good ending. They would all be dealt with. However, they certainly didn't dare to say anything right then. Everything would be decided soon. Chapter 1534. After settling everything, Jiang Tian smiled. "Next, I'm going to find the pearly pearl tree and form the wood elemental true seal. Please lead the way." "That's my duty. Senior Tai Chu, don't mention it." Ao Tian's sword venerable bowed respectfully. "Fairy Muxue, your divination skills are quite good. You have to bring them to greater heights." Jiang Tian smiled. "Thank you for your encouragement, Senior Tai Chu. I'll do my best." Bai Muxue was greatly encouraged and bowed. "Then let's go to the Forbidden Land. Fairy Muxue, come with me. I'll teach you some divination skills along the way." Jiang Tian said with a smile. Divination was very useful. In high-level cultivation civilizations, all alchemy, artifact making, cultivation arts, and even understanding and simulating great Tao were based on divination. They were extremely delicate and subtle. The martial art that Jiang Tian had trained in was the elephant shapeless, heavy sword edgeless. Brute force can break all martial arts. It was a rather primitive, simple, and violent martial art. However, it did not mean that he was not proficient in higher-level martial arts. "Thank you, Senior." Bai Muxue was overjoyed. She vaguely felt that Jiang Tian's cultivation arts, divine powers, and the Dharma laws he understood were even more profound than the Ruins Emperor's inheritance. Otherwise, how could Jiang Tian defeat the strong as the weak, and jump ranks to kill world-shaking Divine Emperor? Jiang Tian's cultivation level was obviously lower. Sword Master Ao Tian even wanted to hold a coronation ceremony, but Jiang Tian rejected it without hesitation. There was no need to talk about these superficial things anymore. Raising one's cultivation was the most important thing, and the most important thing was to raise one's cultivation. However, Bai Muxue, tell the other sects about your divination of the wandering case in the ancient deity ground. In Jiang Tian's previous life, he had conquered the starry sky and swept across thousands of miles. He was very proficient in the art of war and did not blindly act recklessly. Ghost Wolf, imprint and copy the images of the various worlds' chi drawing formations for them as well. If I want to change the fate of the Ruins Emperor, I can't do it alone. I need to reduce the number of enemies and increase the number of comrades. I need to turn the Ruins Emperor into a loner. Only then will I be able to destroy him. Bai Muxue nodded in admiration. She patted her storage bag and many jade scrolls flew to the hands of the Golden Core cultivators, sect masters, and city lords. Fellow Taoists, these are my deductions regarding my travels in the ancient celestial land. If there are any mistakes, please correct them and discuss them with me. I understand. Ghost Wolf also took out the golden sphere and unfolded many scenes. He began to imprint and copy them, handing them over to a few important figures in this world. Many great cultivators picked up the table and poured their magic power into it. Pictures and words appeared in the air. When they saw it, they were shocked. When they looked at the chi drawing formations that Ghost Wolf had imprinted on them, they were even more shocked. Their worldview was turned upside down. So, we are the descendants of the natives of the celestial land. The Ruins Emperor killed our ancestors and enslaved us? So, that's right. I'm not an invader. I crossed 4 light years to come here to seek justice from the Ruins Emperor. Jiang Tian smiled. Why do you want to be the Ruins Emperor's slaves? How can you watch as the spirit chi of our world is sucked away and our descendants can't cultivate and become ordinary people? The throne takes turns. Today, it's our turn. Let's defeat the Ruins Emperor together and kill all the interstellar immigrants on the South Gate 1 planet. We'll take back the lost land. Shall we also enjoy the endless resources in the ruins of immortality? As long as you're willing to work for me, I won't mistreat you. You can be a city lord or sect master. Besides, there's also reform. The cultivation arts that you practice come from the remnants of the ancient celestial land. Jiang Tian scanned everyone and smiled. But after more than 4 light years of interstellar travel, the world is different. Your cultivation method is not that compatible with the nomological Great Tao. Today, take out your sect's ultimate techniques. Whether it's alchemy, array formation, close combat, or Dharma idol laws, I'll help you refine them. More than half of the top overlords of the Penglai world had gathered at the Fallen Leaf Lake. If Jiang Tian had told them before that day, those arrogant peerless cultivators would have scoffed at him. Who do you think you are? Do you think I'll give you my sect's secret arts just because you want them? Who do you think you are? What right do you have to modify our ancestral sect's secret arts? After all, the sect's secret arts were the foundation of a sect. It was like a patented formula on Earth. Who would show it to others so easily? It was even more impossible for others to modify the cultivation arts. But now, Jiang Tian had defeated Divine Emperor Hanshi and killed many Golden Core cultivators in this world. Especially that move just now, the 9th derived law of the Kunpeng, which could easily cut through a godlike world-shaking Divine Emperor, was simply amazing. He wanted everyone to believe that not only was Jiang Tian powerful, but his cultivation arts and divine powers were also at a high level, comparable to the real legendary sacred arts and deity arts. Once Jiang Tian said that, many people started to become restless. After all, Jiang Tian had reached the top at such a young age. The elixirs, arrays, divine powers, dharma laws he had mastered must be earth-shattering. Even a little of it would be enough to satisfy those big shots. Besides, many of them didn't hold a grudge against Jiang Tian. If they could take this opportunity to befriend this traitor who had the potential to overthrow the ruins of deity, it would be killing two birds with one stone. What? Senior Tai Chu is willing to modify our cultivation arts? The sect master of the Xian sect exclaimed in disbelief. She was also one of the people who knew about the ancient history, but she didn't want to show up in public like by Mushua. Legend had it that before the deity ground wandered across the universe, nascent soul cultivators were as common as rain, soul formation cultivators were as common as clouds, and deities and perfected immortals roamed the world. They weren't any weaker than the descendants of the ruins emperor. The reason why the ancient cultivators of the deity ground were defeated by the ruins emperor was that they had migrated far away, which led to a drastic change in nature. They had entered an era of Dao damage, and their cultivation arts couldn't even use a tenth of their original power. And once Jiang Tian modified the cultivation technique to be suitable for this world, their cultivation would increase tenfold, no, 100-fold. That's right. Since you're willing to follow me on the battlefield and kill our enemies, I won't mistreat you. Jiang Tian said calmly. Thank you for your kindness, Divine Lord Tai Chu. The absolute beginning Divine Lord is broad-minded. He has the majestic aura of embracing the world and swallowing the sun and moon. As expected of a Divine Lord, many golden core perfected cultivators, city lords and sect masters were astonished. They kowtowed and couldn't control themselves. At that moment, everyone looked at Jiang Tian in a different way. He had turned from a fiend to their savior and from an evil enemy to their leader. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. They slapped their storage bags and jade scrolls flew to Jiang Tian one after another. After Jiang Tian received them, he scanned them with his spirit consciousness and modified them on the spot. None of the cultivation arts took more than 15 minutes. However, once those cultivation arts were modified by Jiang Tian, they were immediately transformed into something magical. They were refined to their limits and were flawless, compatible with the great Dao laws. After receiving the modified cultivation arts, the old sect master of the Xian sect immediately sat in the air and circulated her cultivation arts silently. 15 minutes later, she actually shattered her core and formed a nascent soul, undergoing the nascent soul thunder tribulation on the spot and successfully advancing to the nascent soul realm. Godly. That's right. The old sect master of the Xian sect was stuck at the nascent soul realm for 500 years and couldn't advance any further. However, after the Divine Lord Tai Chu modified her cultivation arts, she immediately ascended to the Heavenly Lord realm. The Divine Lord Tai Chu is truly a god. All the golden core perfected cultivators present were stunned and couldn't believe it. They worshipped Jiang Tian as if he were a god. Meanwhile, Jiang Tian spent half a night and finally finished modifying all the cultivation arts when the sun rose and the light of the 2 stars of the southern gate shone on them. Everyone kowtowed 3 times and 9 times before leaving gratefully. In fact, the impact of this battle had only just spread. All kinds of news were sent out and caused a huge uproar, shocking everyone. A powerful divine emperor had died in this world. That kind of impact was extremely terrifying. Apart from Sword Master Ao Tian, there were no other nascent soul cultivators in this place. The most powerful one was only a golden core cultivator and was still 2 miles away from the soul formation level. They looked at Divine Emperor Hanshi like how ordinary people looked at Buddha. How could they not be shocked when he was killed by Jiang Tian? Meanwhile, Jiang Tian led everyone to the forbidden area of the Pearl Tree. The forbidden area of the Steel Forest in the 10,000 Mountains. Sword Master Ao Tian had spent a lot of effort to study this forbidden area. He explained, legend has it that this was the training ground of the ancient heavenly courts. The pearl tree was in the middle and it emitted spirit chi to nourish and cultivate them. That divine tree is extremely huge. It's 1,000 feet tall and its spirit chi radiates 100-mile radius. However, there are powerful restrictions and it's difficult to open it. Chapter 1535. That's right. I've tried to deduce the ancient restrictive spells in this forbidden land, but I couldn't find a way to open it. Bai Mushue's pretty face was filled with shock. Besides, there are a lot of monsters there. They've been nourished by the spirit chi and have reached the golden core level or even the nascent soul level. Indeed, it should be a soul formation level restrictive spell. I've tried to break it with dozens of golden core cultivators, but we didn't succeed. Sword Master Outyen sighed. I entered it by accident. The restrictive spells are broken, but they're not stable. They're changing all the time. Besides, I was only at the periphery. I picked up a leaf of the pearl tree that was brought to the edge by the wind or a bird. There are even more dangerous things inside. I don't dare to go any further. It's easy. I'll break it with my sword. Jiang Tian was calm. If he couldn't break it in a short time, he could do it with the heaven-severing sword. The world of Penglai was vast, boundless, and full of vitality. Mountain peaks stood in great numbers, verdant and lush. Towering trees that were hundreds of meters tall covered the sky and the sun. Vines climbed up the cliffs, and the fragrance of orchids wafted through the air. Spiritual herbs swayed gently, and they were shrouded by spiritual energy that was like clouds and mist. Giant Qilin beasts were lying lazily on the cliffs, basking in the sun. Their saliva flowed into a stream. All kinds of beasts were running around and fighting. High up in the sky, spiritual birds and vicious beasts flapped their wings and flew high up in the sky. They whistled and cried, adding a sense of savagery to the atmosphere. An iron-feathered giant falcon swooped down, and when it rushed up again, its claws had already grabbed a 100-meter-long giant python. This was an ancient planet that was very suitable for cultivation. It used to be a famous deity island in the ancient times and had given birth to many grand cultivators. If the deity ground hadn't wandered around the universe, the nascent soul level wouldn't have been the limit of the cultivators in this world. In hundreds of years, there might even be 1 or 2 soul formation grand cultivators. The local conditions and customs here were different and unbalanced, but it gave people a colorful feeling. There were golden core sects that stood in the clouds at the peak of a mountain. Their buildings stretched as far as the eye could see, as if they were immortal palaces. The mountain protection array formation emitted a dazzling light. Their disciples and cultivators stepped on flying swords and even rode on flying boats to and fro in the clouds. There were also mortal cities. Although they were guarded by cultivators, most of them were mortals. The roads were crisscrossed, and commerce flourished. It was bustling with activity. At this time, the major sects and cities were spreading the news of their defection and the truth of the wandering of the ancient immortal land. Kong Techu had never invaded and had been framed. The crisis had been resolved and every city and town was recovering. There were also primitive tribes that were hidden in the mountains, occupying strategic locations. They used rough stones and wood to build towers, and piled up a lot of rolling logs and boulders in all directions around the village. These tribes wore clothes made of beast skin and used simple pottery and stone tools. They ate raw meat and drank blood, but they were tall and strong. They could fight with savage beasts barehanded. They lived a life far away from the secular world and stood aloof from worldly affairs. Whoa! They are eating jackdaw meat. It was so fragrant. Let's go eat. Suddenly, Zhang Qingyang excitedly pointed at a village on a primitive mountain as they passed by a stone village. Originally, exploring the forbidden area of the stone tablet was very dangerous. Sword Venerable Ao Tian didn't let him come, so he couldn't protect himself. However, he insisted on following. This brat was extremely crafty, knowing that following Jiang Tian, even if it was just for a few days, would be a great opportunity. Just by listening to Jiang Tian casually speak a few sentences, those were all profound words of the great Tao, greatly increasing his own strength. Jiang Tian didn't stop him. His foundation and character were good. If Penglai world could be protected, he should be the realm master. Of course, he would be nurtured and trained. Zhang Qingyang had lived for 100 years, but he still had the temperament of a young man. Perhaps it was because he had spent more than 90% of his life in seclusion and rarely left the sect, so he was very happy to see the bizarre world. I don't care if you eat or not, I'm not eating. Ghost Wolf was speechless. He had the dark crow bloodline. Although it was a rare demon bloodline, it was also a distant relative of the jackdaw. To him, eating jackdaw meat was like eating monkey meat. It was very cruel and unacceptable. Jiang Tian looked down and saw that the sun was high in the sky. The entire village was full of vitality and tranquility. Many children were running on the ground, and the old people were bathed in the sunlight and looked kindly. Every one of them was a tall and muscular man with bare arms and chests. Almost every one of them was dragging a huge ferocious beast, returning from a rewarding journey. The biggest one was a jackdaw as big as a calf. They're back. Father and the others are back. Oh my God, there's such a big harvest. It's a harvest day. A group of women and children who had been waiting at the entrance of the village for a long time cheered. The uneasiness and fear in their hearts disappeared as they shouted loudly. They ran up and hugged their men and fathers passionately. There were even young couples who kissed wildly. They were very open and unrestrained, but no one cared. It was full of a natural and sincere wilderness. They seemed to be easily satisfied. As long as there was food and the company of family, it was enough. The entire village was overjoyed. They plucked the huge jackdaw's feathers and skin, washed it clean, and lit a bonfire. They used 2 big trees as barbecues and prepared to share the food. Sigh, this is the most primitive and simple love for a wife and family. It's so touching. Jiang Tian couldn't help but be a little dazed. He stopped in his tracks and looked at them with reddened eyes. He was moved and revealed a kind smile. Everyone stopped in their tracks and then looked at Jiang Tian with shock and surprise. They couldn't believe it. Jiang Tian had the strength of a divine lord. He was an unparalleled hero. He was bloody and cold, like a god. Even if Mount Tai collapsed in front of him, his expression wouldn't change. He killed 100,000 people in one strike and stained the sky and earth with blood. His heart was as calm as a lake. When had they ever seen Jiang Tian have such a benevolent expression? But they didn't know. At this time, Jiang Tian thought of the reactions of Zhao Xueqing, his grandfather, his parents, and many disciples every time he returned from a bloody battle. The orbit and rotation of the stars here are completely different from that on Earth. One day is not equal to one day on Earth. But I used the method of constant decay of the magic artifact to calculate that I have been away from Earth for 2 years. Jiang Tian looked at the scene in the village without blinking. His heart was soft, and his thoughts surged like a tide. I wonder if Jiang Beibei, that brat, can walk now? Is Qing'er okay? To what extent has the recovery of spirit qi in the earth reached? Jiang Tian also saw a little girl of 2 or 3 years old with hair tied up in the sky. She was wearing an animal skin tutu. She was very strong and could walk unsteadily. She crouched in front of an injured strong man and carefully looked at the wound that he had been scratched by a demon beast. She was silent, but tears were dripping down to the ground. She seemed to be very concerned and distressed. Next to her, her big and strong mother was applying herbs to her father. The strong man touched the child's little head. Although his face was pale, he still laughed in a muffled voice. Don't cry. It's okay. Dad is very strong. One day, I will unfortunately die in battle in this world. Beibei, don't blame Dad, because I can't escape. Jiang Tian looked in the direction of Earth with tears in his eyes. It was daytime. Under the light of the Alpha Centauri, it was impossible to see the blue planet that was as small as a speck of dust. But 10,000 years passed in a glance. His gaze seemed to penetrate the tears, through the past and the present life, through the distance of 40,000 light years. He saw his daughter's wrinkled little face when she was born. He was in a trance for a moment. They saw that Jiang Tian's tears were coming out. Everyone suddenly understood that Jiang Tian missed his homeland and family. They could not help but sigh with mixed feelings. Especially by Mushua. Tears were flowing down her cheeks, but she did not say a word. No one disturbed him. In the vast and dangerous universe and the deep cosmos, a golden core cultivator could be said to be as insignificant as an ant. He could be torn to smithereens by the spatial fragments and storms that invaded the world cave at any time. Furthermore, Jiang Tian's homeland was just a barren land. His cultivation level was not high and he was facing the powerful and mysterious Ruins Emperor, as well as a world that had been completely conquered and enslaved by him. As for Jiang Tian, for the safety of his homeland, he did not hesitate to venture deep into it alone. He traversed several worlds and traveled a distance of 4 light-years just to wage war on the Ruins Emperor. He endured so much loneliness and took on so many terrifying dangers. It's a cultivator. It can't be one of those bandits, right? No, it doesn't look like it. The bandits are all very fierce. He must be craving meat? The villagers saw Jiang Tian and company fly past. One of the white-robed cultivators even stared at them for a long time. They could not help but be surprised. They stopped what they were doing and discussed among themselves. Under the instructions of the adults, the children ran into a stone house. Foreigners passing by. According to the rules of the heavenly village, guests passing by can share the food on the harvest day. Come on down. Following that, a thin old man in an animal hide robe walked out. He was holding a snow-white, crystalline animal bone crutch. He sized up Jiang Tian and company and said with a friendly smile. Chapter 1536. Jiang Tian regained his composure. His eyes became clear and sharp as he asked, "Ghost Wolf, how long will it take to reach the Steel Forest?" "My lord, we have already entered the border of the 10,000 mountains. At our current speed it will take us a day." Ao Tian's Sword Venerable said respectfully. "Half a day doesn't matter." Jiang Tian nodded slightly and looked at the pitiful 2-year-old child. He smiled and said, "Deference is no substitute for obedience. Thank you for your invitation, old master." Then he led the group into the village. "It is our honor to have you here." The villagers of Heavenly Village were extremely enthusiastic. The village chief invited the guests into the stone house to boil water and chop firewood. He also ordered a pai xiao and a saber-toothed tiger to be peeled for Jiang Tian and the others. They were all delicious dishes. The hunters in the village accompanied Jiang Tian and the others to chat. Children, alligators, iron-boned dogs, and other domestic animals were gathered in the village. From time to time, they would poke their heads out and look around. The women were jubilant and lively. The village was so primitive that it was beyond imagination. The houses were all made of stone and wood. Even the axes were made of stone. There were almost no metal objects. There were only a few iron knives and spears used for hunting. Other than food, all the families had nothing. Jiang Tian had the same feeling as when he entered the longevity village of Haifika's lake back on Earth. However, when Jiang Tian scanned with his divine sense, he noticed that there were a few weapons in the depths of the house. They were very old but still sharp. The key was that there were ancient words on them that said, "Made by heavenly workers." Jiang Tian was slightly shocked. If he was not mistaken, they should be the descendants of the ancient heavenly court. No wonder they were called the Heavenly Village. A few nimble women and girls poured tea in ceramic cups and served it respectfully. The tea here was very strange. It was collected from the leaves and petals of some kind of spiritual medicine and dried fruit slices. It was very similar to fruit tea on Earth. The village chief smiled and said, "You came from the outside. I heard that the outside world has changed. The Emperor Hanshi of the Ruins of Immortality was killed by a bandit called Kong Teichu. Is that true?" "Indeed." Jiang Tian maintained his composure. "This place has changed drastically. It is no longer under the jurisdiction of the Ruins Emperor. Why does Old Master care about this? I heard that Kong Teichu is a native of the deity ground. He even came from the distant solar system?" The village leader didn't answer. Instead, he asked another question. "That's right. Esteemed guest, please excuse me for a moment." The village chief's expression was slightly solemn. He walked out of the door and said a few words that Jiang Tian and the rest couldn't understand. Immediately, the whole village was in jubilation. The men raised their arms and cheered loudly. Many women and young girls even shed tears. Jiang Tian walked out of the door and said with a smile, "Mr. Village Chief, can I take a look around the village?" "Esteemed guest, please help yourself." Following that, the village chief led all the male villagers and carried a few ferocious beasts to a huge stone platform halfway up the mountain. They kowtowed 3 times and 9 times to a grave. It was a solemn ceremony. Many people shed tears. In front of the grave knelt a huge corpse that was wrapped in iron wires and vines. Even after countless years of decay, there was still a faint fluctuation of dermic powers. A baleful aura emanated from it, indicating that it belonged to the bloodline of the ruins emperor. Bright red beast blood stained the huge stone platform and flowed along the engravings on the stone surface. It was a brilliant red. Together with the thick fur of the behemoth, its scales that shimmered with cold light, and its ferocious horns, it was a shocking sight. There was a tragic, desolate aura that surged over. The charred grave was as silent as before. It didn't react at all, as though it had never used any offerings. However, many villagers knew that it had a spirit. Under the village chief's arrangement, a few burly men threw out an ancient stone tablet from a pit. On it were written in very ancient and profound words, "Tomb of perfected Lord Zhao Ziming, the hero who resisted the South Gate's 1 star." They solemnly placed it in front of the grave. The village chief carried a bucket of water forward and carefully wiped the soil off the tombstone. "Distant ancestor, Divine Emperor Hanshi is dead. Your tombstone can finally be erected openly. Perhaps, it won't be long before the ruins emperor is killed as well. Let us look forward to it together." The village chief leaned on his walking stick. With the support of 2 children, he was still trembling with excitement as though he was on the brink of collapse. There were still many young men, women, and children left in the village. They were slicing the beasts with silver knives, skinning and scraping the bones. From time to time, there would be clanging sounds and sparks. The behemoth's bones were shockingly hard and difficult to cut. Long Xingnan, Zhang Qingyang, and even Bai Muxue went to help in high spirits. They conjured their cultivation techniques and condensed their quintessential essence into sabers that sliced through everything. It made the children cheer. Awesome! They are the legendary cultivators that can become immortals. The children revered them greatly as their eyes revealed their desire. Someone had already prepared a huge jar made of clay to collect the blood essence that was preserved in the special parts of the beasts' bodies. To them, it was an excellent blood tonic that was extremely rare. "Uncle Ghost Wolf, have a bite." Zhang Qingyang broke off a section of the jackdaw's wing and began munching on it. "You want me to eat my distant relative?" "Zhang Qingyang, you little bastard, you sure are naughty. Are you asking for a beating?" Ghost Wolf looked at the jackdaw meat that was sizzling with oil. He had a pained expression as he shouted anxiously, "It's really fragrant. It's a ferocious beast that often flies. Its meat is very elastic. Furthermore, it can consume spirit herbs and spirit herbs. It's very nutritious." Zhang Qingyang's saliva splattered as he ate to his heart's content. "Proud heaven, why don't you discipline your disciple? Be careful that I don't beat him up." Ghost Wolf gritted his teeth as he shouted. 2 glistening droplets of saliva accidentally flowed out as he sucked them in. "Ha, Uncle Ghost Wolf, you're obviously greedy." Zhang Qingyang was overjoyed. "Uncle Ghost Wolf, don't force yourself." "Ghost Wolf, why do you have to make things difficult for yourself? You have to admit that you're greedy." Long Shengnan also laughed. Even Sword Venerable Ao Tian was amused. Bai Muxue also revealed a smile. "I'm drooling because of the saber-toothed tiger meat." Ghost Wolf refused to admit and turned his gaze to the side. He was indeed tempted just now. The jackdaw meat was too fragrant. It was filled with local spices, oil, and honey. Furthermore, the people of the heavenly village were very good at barbecuing. The meat was crispy on the outside and tender on the inside. This was a rare opportunity for Jiang Tian and the others to relax. After a series of battles, they were surrounded by dangers. Their nerves were stretched taut, and no one could withstand it. At this moment, they temporarily forgot about fighting and killing. They became mortals, experiencing the mortal world and relaxing their bodies and minds. The 2-year-old girl wearing a doo-doo sat in the corner with her father. She looked worriedly at her father's bleeding wound. "Father, how long will it take for you to get better?" She was still a little stuttering, but her body was very strong. Her little face was filled with nervousness and worry. Crystal clear tears were swirling in her eyes. This was the inheritance of this clan. Their bloodline was special, and they could speak and walk at a very early age. Since ancient times, their clan had trained their bodies. However, they couldn't master any spells. Basically, they were all experts in close combat. "Father will be able to get up in 3 months. I'll let you ride a horse." The man's face was very pale. He was enduring severe pain, but he still smiled lovingly. He didn't want his daughter to worry. Beside him, the man's wife turned around and cried silently. The man was bitten by the saber-toothed tiger. Venom was left on his bones and wounds. It was difficult to heal. Even if he recovered, he wouldn't be able to walk again. However, she couldn't bear to tell her daughter and make her sad. The hunters in the village would be injured or even killed by the savage beasts every once in a while. Their lives were very difficult. Such a harvest was accompanied by a painful death. There's no need for 3 months. At this moment, Jiang Tian walked over lazily. He took out a bottle of pills and said with a smile, "3 hours is enough." "Thank you for the pills, Immortal." The man and his wife hurriedly took the pills and knelt down to thank him. They were so excited that their bodies were trembling. Their faces were full of gratitude. They knew that Jiang Tian and the others were cultivators and could help them. However, they also heard that cultivators were very arrogant. They viewed human lives as nothing and treated pills as treasures. They would definitely not help them. Therefore, they didn't open their mouths to beg, so as not to make things difficult for the guests. However, they didn't expect that Jiang Tian would give them pills. Chapter 1537. 3 incense sticks? Is it really that amazing? The little girl looked at Jiang Tian in disbelief. Her clear eyes flickered. "Yes. If I can do it, let me hold you," Jiang Tian said with a smile. This girl reminded him of his daughter. "I don't want to be held. I could walk when I was 1. I want to fight monsters like my father." The little girl lifted her nose with great ambition. She might be an excellent huntress in the future, an iron heroine. "Then I won't give your father any pills," Jiang Tian said with a serious face. The little girl was so scared that her eyes were filled with tears, and she almost cried. The man and his wife knew that Jiang Tian was joking. They smiled and said, "Just let me hold you. Don't be shy." "All right, I'll do it." The little girl felt wronged. She swore to be a huntress in the future. She was already 2 years old, not a 1-year-old kid. How could she let him hold her? Jiang Tian immediately asked the man to swallow the pills and used his cultivation art to help him refine them. He guided the pills to his wounds and broken bones, dissolving the toxins left by the saber-toothed tiger. Dissolving such natural toxins was a piece of cake for Jiang Tian. Jiang Tian chatted with the man as he did that. He learned that his name was Luo Xin, the grandson of Luo Shou, the village leader. He used to be the most powerful hunter in the village. His body was strong enough to fight with golden core monsters. His youngest daughter was called Luo Fu, which meant that one day she would be able to recover the land and take back the ruins of deity. However, that was just a dream for them. They were mortals in the age of Tao damage and their blood was sealed. After 10,000 years, they were still mortals and couldn't cultivate. They could only eat the flesh of monsters and bathe in blood to strengthen their bodies. He heaved a sigh and wished that he could go to the ruins of deity to fight. Jiang Tian thought to himself. He planned to leave some body-tempering arts for them to improve their power. With hard work, they could become melee masters in 10 years and be able to fight with nascent soul cultivators. In fact, Close combat was a cultivation path that was on par with law cultivation in the universe. They didn't condense vital essence, nor did they cultivate Dharma laws. They only focused on strengthening their physical bodies. However, in the long history of the Central Galaxy, many powerful figures had been born. There had even been a few immortal emperors. It was just that the progress of body cultivation was slow, and not many people understood it. In fact, in less than half an incense stick's worth of time, Luo Sen's broken leg had already recovered. He could run as if he was flying. Everyone was alarmed and came to take a look. Lawson removed the branches and linen that were holding him in place. His wound had recovered completely. Jiang Tian was naturally greeted with a wave of praise and gratitude. They regarded him as an immortal and a god. "Thank you, Uncle Jiang." Little Luo Fu excitedly threw himself into Jiang Tian's arms and kissed Jiang Tian's face several times, leaving behind a lot of saliva. I'll leave you another bottle of these pills. If you're injured, just eat a little. As long as you don't die, you can be saved." Jiang Tian hugged her tiny body and felt warmth in his heart. Perhaps it was the same feeling when hugging a daughter. He was overjoyed and was especially generous. He left behind a huge bottle of healing pills, enough for them to eat for 8 to 10 years. Everyone was overjoyed. Finally, village chief Luo Shou finished his ritual. The mourners heaved a sigh of relief as joyful smiles surfaced on their faces once again. A few burly men began moving the corpses of the ferocious beasts, preparing to bleed and cut them up. There were even some mischievous children who went forward and spat at the kneeling corpses and kicked them fiercely. They were extremely valiant. Jiang Tian had nothing to do, so he walked over and asked curiously, "Who is this Zhao Ziming?" The village chief was known as Old Shou. It's a long story. 10,000 years ago, during the era of Tao damage, the cultivators of the South Gate 1 star invaded the Immortal Land. They first attacked the Immortal Land before attacking Hylon and finally breaching Broken Blade Pass. The million-strong army of our Penglai world was defeated. The Ruins Emperor sent Brother Mingchuan to guard the people of the 300 cities in this world. The natives of the Immortal Land were all fierce men who were unwilling to be slaves. Zhao Ziming, a golden core cultivator from Wanren Mountain, gathered his troops and destroyed 18 enemy cities in one night, robbing hundreds of crystal warships. From then on, he raised his flag and swore to rebel against the Ruins Emperor and take back his homeland. He even met the Ao Emperor. The old man's face was filled with emotions as if countless old stories were surging in his mind. Jiang Tian later learned that the so-called Broken Blade Pass was the meteorite belt where he and Divine Emperor Hanshi had fought. During the era of Tao damage, to resist the invasion of the South Gate 1 star's experts, huge floating cities and fortresses were built there. Countless cultivators were stationed there, densely packed with space warships and flying ships. They had held on for hundreds of years. Countless galactic battles had taken place there. Blood dyed the vast starry sky red. Corpses were densely packed and it was extremely bloody. Countless broken weapons and artifacts floated in the air, densely packed. Therefore, during the era of Tao damage, it was called Broken Blade City or Broken Blade Fortress. Jiang Tian was filled with respect when he heard that. He took out 3 incense sticks, lit them, and stabbed them into the ground under the grave. Then he bowed 3 times respectfully. "He's your distant ancestor?" Jiang Tian asked. "Speaking of which, he's not. My distant ancestor was a hunter in this place. He hit it off with him at first sight and became his subordinate." The old man said, "Later, my distant ancestor and Zhao Ziming perished. Senior Zhao had no children. Therefore, the mission of guarding his grave has been passed down from generation to generation in our race." Just as he was about to open his mouth, little Luofu's shout came from the direction of the village. "Great-grandpa, Uncle Jiang, it's time for dinner. Let's go. We'll talk about perfected Lord Zhao's story later." The old man brought Jiang Tian back to the village. Little Luofu held his great-grandpa's hand and immediately gave Jiang Tian pointers. He told him about Jiang Tian's gift of pills and Luo Sen's recovery. Luo Shou's face was full of joy. He was very grateful and bowed repeatedly to Jiang Tian to express his gratitude. He didn't expect Jiang Tian to be so generous. The banquet had already been set up. The crude wooden table was placed in the small square in the center of the village. Half of a saber-toothed tiger was placed over the bonfire. The tiger's skin had already been peeled off, and a layer of wild honey was brushed on its skin. It was roasted with wood from a fruit tree, and it was golden brown and fragrant. There were also wild rabbits and wild pheasants. The villagers had brewed their own grain wine. The simple men of the heavenly village smiled and invited the cultivators and distinguished guests to take a seat. Kid, eat more pie show meat. Eat more to grow strength. This is a rare and precious meat. Brat, this is saber-toothed tiger meat. With more supplements, your fists will be as hard as iron. Don't eat that useless wild boar meat. Immortal Jiang, please drink more grain wine. Although it's crude, it's good that we brewed it ourselves. It's delicious. Everyone gathered together in a lively atmosphere. They drank large amounts of millet wine and chopped large chunks of saber-toothed tiger meat into strips. They grabbed them with their hands and directly gnawed on them. They ate until their mouths were full of oil and it was full of a wild taste. There was no need to mention that refreshing feeling. Jiang Tian suddenly looked at the sky outside the door and said leisurely, "Village leader Luo, do you have any enemies in the heavenly village?" In the eyes of the ruins of immortality, the Luo family of the heavenly village is just a remnant of the deity ground. They once hunted us for 1,000 years. Luo Shou sighed bitterly. We used to be a big family with tens of thousands of people, but now there are only so many of us left. However, later, we hid in the mountains and stayed away from the world. The divine soldiers and divine generals of the ruins of immortality also gave up on hunting us. It's been peaceful over the past few hundred years. It's not the divine soldiers and divine generals of the ruins of immortality, but there are strong enemies. Judging from their tools, they should be a group of gravediggers. Jiang Tian smiled and said, "They're from the Ying family." Luo Shou was shocked and remembered something. The Ying family of the great bandits. They're despicable and shameless. A group of pangolins and rats. They dig holes all day long and dig the graves of other people's ancestors. They're heartless. It's not the first time they've coveted perfected Cultivator Zhao's grave. Many of our ancestors were injured by them. We've taken perfected Cultivator Zhao's body 3 times, but they still came after us. They've gone too far. Let's fight them. Luo Sen and the others were enraged. They slammed the table and shouted. Many men and even women and children rushed into the stone houses and picked up the weapons hidden in the dark. They looked at the sky and roared, ready to fight to the death with the enemy. They were fierce and hot-blooded. They were going to use their bodies to guard the grave of perfected cultivator Zhao Ziming. He was a hero and they felt that guarding the grave was their mission. They weren't afraid even if they were killed by the great bandits. What a luxurious lineup. There are also a few nascent soul heavenly lords. Jiang Tian also held Luo Fu's hand and walked out of the door with Luo Shou. They stood in the open space in the village with a calm face. Chapter 1538. The Great Ko-Ing Family? I think I've heard you mention it before. Jiang Tian seemed to have heard of the family before, but he did not have a deep impression of it. He could not help but glance at Long Sheng'en and Sword Venerable Ao Tian. Apart from the heavenly courts, the mortal world, and hell, there are 7 great Ko-families in the various worlds of the ruins of immortality that resist the ruins emperor. They are quite a powerful faction. Long Sheng'en revealed a solemn expression as she introduced them. Their origins are unknown, but their cultivation levels are very powerful. They control the heritage of the ancient heavenly courts. Some of the great Ko-families even have soul formation experts presiding over them. They are at odds with the ruins emperor and the various heavenly sects and family clans. They occupy their territories and pillage everywhere. They are extremely ferocious. After Long Sheng'en's introduction, Jiang Tian had a rough understanding. The 3 great assassin dynasties were cunning foxes. They loved ambushing and assassinating. As for the great Ko-families, They were a pack of hungry wolves and ferocious tigers. They occupied forbidden lands and set up formations. Every great controlled tens of thousands of cultivators. They raised their flags and fought with their strength. However, unlike the three great assassin dynasties that only targeted the Ruins Emperor's faction, they bullied the weak with their strength. No matter who one supported or opposed, as long as one had natural treasures, one could be targeted by them and face annihilation. Jiang Tian's expression was calm, but he was somewhat tempted. If these forces were used, they could be a powerful aid. At the very least, they could disrupt the Ruins Emperor's deployment. Your Excellency, Xing, it's not that simple. Ghost Wolf's expression was solemn as he chewed on the jackdaw meat. Actually, with their strength, they are still incomparable to the regular armies of the Ruins of Immortality's 9 guards. There's a huge gap. However, they have not been wiped out for thousands of years. There's a reason for this. I heard that they seem to control some ancient world whole teleportation arrays that even the Ruins of Immortality do not know about. They can easily traverse the various worlds without leaving a trace. In the past, even the 9 guards sent an army to wipe them out. Although they were no match for them, they could still easily retreat. I see, Jiang Tian nodded. If he obtained these world holes, he would at least have the means to protect himself even if he could not defeat the Ruins Emperor for the time being. At that moment, sharp sword hums and roars of ferocious beasts sounded. Groups of domineering and bloodthirsty experts came from the horizon. They surrounded the heavenly village. There were at least a few hundred people, and almost all of them were at the Golden Core realm. They were very powerful. The leader was actually a dozen nascent soul stage cultivators. Their strength was not inferior to Long Xingnan and Ao Tian Swordmaster. They were not far from Ghost Wolf. Even though they were supreme cultivators, they weren't as ethereal and transcendent as other cultivators. Instead, they rode on top of savage beasts and fierce birds. Their scales were dense and their wings were huge. The roars of the beasts echoed for 10 miles while their murderous intent soared to the sky. This was a group of great bandits whose bodies were suffused with bloody energy. With a single glance, one could tell that their hands had once been dyed in blood. They had stepped over piles of corpses and killed countless people. They had gathered unimaginable killing intent, and there was bloody energy that transformed into the laws of slaughter that coiled around their bodies. Their imposing auras shook the heavens and earth. One after another, savage beasts broke through the void and arrived. The huge wings of the ferocious birds also stirred up the wind and clouds, causing thunder and lightning. The leader of the bandits was a young man who looked to be in his 30s. He was sitting on the head of a giant in beast, but his cultivation was at the peak stage of the nascent soul stage, not far from the half-step to the soul formation stage. He had a wide mouth and fangs, and his beard was like a steel brush. He looked extremely ugly. His demonic golden vertical pupils were like those of a cold-blooded creature like a poisonous snake. His eyes were cold and there seemed to be no human emotions in them. His eyes were arrogant and his teeth were dense. He was full of ferocity. The cold iron armor around his body was flashing and clanging. He was holding a pair of sharp scissors that looked like crisscrossing canine teeth. 9 blood-red flags floated in the air behind him, as if they were completely condensed by blood energy. After drinking all the blood energy soared into the sky. This is Yi Chun, who has the bloodline of the 9-tailed divine crocodile. He's the young master of the Yi family, one of the 9 bandits. This person is extremely bloody and cruel. He once killed a noble in the Ruins of Immortality, slaughtered 8 cities and robbed countless heavenly treasures. Long Xingnan was shocked. This was a notorious bandit. Since his ancestors, he had been robbing and killing people for their belongings. He had a long history. He didn't have any rules or scruples when doing things. He killed as he pleased. He was ferocious and wasn't afraid of death. Being able to retreat calmly from a half-step to the soul formation divine general was a headache. I've even suppressed the crocodile ancestor. What's there to be afraid of? It's just a 9-tailed crocodile. It's like a small lizard. Jiang Tian said. The other bandit had a pointy head, a black face, and a pair of sneaky eyes. His slender body was streamlined, and his face, neck, and hands were covered with scales. The nails on his hands were unusually long and slightly curved, shining with cold light like peerless heavenly hooks. He obviously had the bloodline of a demon beast. Yellow earth energy surrounded him, forming laws. Obviously, he was very good at earth cultivation arts. He could break mountains and break the earth with ease. Jiang Tian's divine sense swept over this person, and his expression involuntarily changed. Clearly, this was the first time he had met this person, but he felt a sense of déjà vu. Even his bloodline and aura gave him a very familiar feeling. He's the young master of the Ying family, Ying Long. He's extremely despicable and shameless. He makes a living by digging tombs and robbing tombs. He likes to dig up other people's tombs the most. Everywhere he goes, there are thousands of holes. Ghost Wolf didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He plundered more than 1,000 tombs. He even dug up the imperial mausoleum of the ruins emperor's lineage. He stole countless treasures and the corpse of a divine lord. He even defecated and peed in the tomb. He even alerted the ruins emperor. He had once checked the relevant files and even chased after Ying Long, but he didn't catch up with him. He knew Ying Long very well. I'm a fanatical researcher. I only like to study history and take it as my responsibility to straighten out the progress of mankind. I'm committed to becoming a great archaeologist who can reproduce the real history through the underground tombs. At this moment, Ying Long glanced at the villagers of Heavenly Village and said with a righteous face, I heard that perfected cultivator Zhao Ziming's tomb is here. I want to explore it and take out the burial items, turning them into treasures. Don't stop me. I excavate tombs and protect ancient relics. It's all for academic research. I want to clear the fog and restore the truth of history. I don't like to kill people. All of you, quickly retreat. This fellow had a very shameless face. He made his despicable actions of digging tombs and robbing tombs sound extremely noble. Ying Long, Senior Zhao died tragically in battle back then. He didn't leave behind any treasures. Village Chief Luo Shou stepped forward and cupped his fists. Sir, please be magnanimous and let Senior Zhao off this time. Don't let him have no peace after death. No, no, no. You don't understand. Ying Long said very seriously. I've emphasized time and time again that it's not for treasures, but for the sake of researching the truth of history. His death involved the Great War of the era of Dao damage. The people of your world are still being deceived. Besides, it's not up to you to decide if there are any relics or relics. As a historian, I have to dig it up and take a look for myself. This is the empirical spirit of historical research. You are not to touch Senior Zhao's tomb at all. Get out of here. Luo Xin raised his hand and grabbed a 1,000-kilogram boulder, raised it high, and threw it at Ying Long like a shot put. Clang. Yi Chun pointed in the air, and with a finger, the huge rock immediately exploded in the air, turning into fine powder. How dare you attack the great Ko family? You're courting death. Yi Chun's face was cold and ruthless. He stretched out his hand and raised a 1,000-foot mountain and smashed it at Heavenly Village. At this moment, everyone cried out in surprise, and their faces turned pale from shock. The young and strong men of the Heavenly Village could naturally escape with their powerful physical techniques. However, the women and children, as well as some elderly people, would suffer. They might not be able to resist at all. Chapter 1539. Little Luo Fu clutched Jiang Tian's right hand tightly, his face pale from fright as he shut his eyes tightly. Luo Xin shouted, Yi Chun, my rule is that tomb robbers don't kill people. Why are you doing this? But it was too late for him to stop him. You're courting death by killing the innocent. Under extreme danger, Jiang Tian's face sank, and he held little Luo Fu in his arms as he took a step forward to meet the attack. With a flick of his sleeve, surging seventh metal true essence pushed out like a raging wave, instantly pushing the enormous mountain far away and shattering it. Rumble! Countless boulders fell on the ground like rain, causing the earth to shake and trees to snap. It was as if a great earthquake had erupted. HM? An expert. I can't believe there's a golden core cultivator in the small heavenly village. At this moment, Yi Chun, Ying Long, and the other great Ko and great bandits were all shocked and incredulous. The heavenly village was just a group of ordinary people with strong bodies. They were far weaker than the cultivators of the great bandits. It was as if a Harvard student had appeared in a poor village where everyone was illiterate. It was really surprising. Ying Long, you're such a busybody. Why do you have so many rules? Yi Chun's demonic vertical pupils revealed a mocking expression as he laughed sinisterly. He's a golden core perfected cultivator after all. Do you think he'll let you take away his ancestors' treasure? He has to be killed. Ah, brother, just step back. I'm really doing research and archaeology. I won't hurt Senior Zhao's body. Ying Long tried to persuade Jiang Tian. He didn't want to see Jiang Tian die. He was a thief and didn't kill people. Beating people was his limit. If he hadn't met Yi Chun and the other party hadn't insisted on robbing him, he would have dug it out secretly when no one was around. That would have been perfect. Do you think you're so great just because there's a golden core cultivator in the heavenly village? In the end, you're just a mortal ant who can't cultivate. You don't know how high the sky is. A nascent soul realm bandit was full of disdain. He took out a golden pestle and threw it at Jiang Tian. They were all bandits who had traversed the various worlds. They killed people like scything flax and made a name for themselves by stepping on piles of bones. They had even dared to provoke the Ruins Emperor's palace and the 9 guards. They had seen all sorts of situations and had killed countless golden core cultivators. Why would they think anything of them? That nascent soul bandit was also extremely ruthless. It was normal for him to kill people and steal their treasures. His weapons, Dharma treasures, and even the beast he was riding were all stolen. Countless golden core perfected lords had died in his hands. This precious pestle was also a quasi-true artifact. It contained metal laws, and as it smashed down, golden light pervaded the air like a river of light. It poured down in torrents, and the rumbling of laws was enough to turn everything within 10 li into fine powder. Chila. Jiang Tian's face was as cold as iron. This time he truly made a move. He pointed at the air. Rumble. A beam of golden light was shot out like a cannonball, instantly breaking the golden curtain and tearing apart the laws. It penetrated the nascent soul realm bandit's body and even destroyed his nascent soul. That was a shocking scene. A rain of blood was falling from the sky. Broken bones and pieces of internal organs were flying everywhere, and the airwaves caused by the explosion of the nascent soul were surging like tides. Jiang Tian had killed a nascent soul realm cultivator with a finger. Everyone was completely shocked. He killed a mid-stage nascent soul realm cultivator with a finger. Who is he? Be careful. This kid hid his power. He killed a nascent soul realm cultivator with a finger. He's obviously a peak stage or even a peak stage heavenly lord. Many bandits looked at Jiang Tian in shock, as if they were looking at a devil. They used to be invincible on a second-class planet like Hailan and even dared to go to the ruins of deity. When they went to a desolate planet like Penglai, they were like city people playing in the countryside. They didn't take it seriously at all. After all, the most powerful person there, Sword Master Outyin, was only an early-stage nascent soul heavenly lord, and there was only one of him in this world. What did they have to be afraid of? But they had never thought that an overlord would suddenly appear and kill a nascent soul heavenly lord when they were facing a group of ordinary people in Heavenly Village. Boom! The giant beasts galloped, and the vicious birds flapped their wings. Their team hurriedly changed from attacking to defending, and formed a battle formation. Everyone looked at Jiang Tian vigilantly. Kitor, did you come from the heavenly world? In fact, even Yi Chun was shocked. His face was unprecedentedly serious and cold light flashed in his eyes as he scanned Jiang Tian. Even though he was a peak-stage nascent soul realm cultivator, he knew he couldn't kill a nascent soul realm bandit with a finger. You don't deserve to know my name. Jiang Tian sneered and snorted with disdain in his eyes. You're used to killing innocent people and robbing people, right? How dare you bully me? I'll give you 2 choices. You can kneel and surrender, or I'll kill you. Seeing how powerful Jiang Tian was, Ying Long quickly stopped Yi Chun and said with his immortal will, "Forget it. Forget it, Brother Yi, let's retreat. I'll come back at night to investigate secretly. I won't hurt or kill anyone. Even the scene is perfect. That's what an archaeologist should do. Get out of my way." Yi Chun waved his hand and pushed Ying Long away. His face was as cold as iron and his eyes were cold and ruthless. "Today, I'll kill this person. I'll skin him alive and extract his divine soul to refine in the demonic fire seed for 1,000 years to avenge my brother." Yi Chun roared, so hateful that his demonic vertical pupils turned completely red. How could the right-hand man of the nascent soul realm bandit, who had lost his mind and died, spare Jiang Tian? He brazenly attacked, raising the crocodile scissors and cutting. An enormous crocodile that was over 300 meters long appeared in the sky, covering the sky and covering the sun like a small mountain. It was completely formed from true essence controlled by the laws, and its 9 tails swayed in unison, shaking heaven and earth. It opened its bloody mouth and bit towards Jiang Tian. This was not his Dharma form, but the weapon spirit of the quasi-genuine weapon. It was formed by the Dharma power and the Dharma power. Even if it was broken, it would not hurt him. "Uncle Jiang, I'm scared." The little girl was frightened and trembled slightly. After all, she was high in the sky at this time, and the crocodile that the bandits had shot out was 10 times more terrifying than the crocodiles she had seen before. "Don't be afraid. These are just things that Uncle can blow up with one punch. Look, Uncle will set off fireworks for you to see." Jiang Tian held the little girl in his hand and slowly raised his jade-white fist with his left hand and punched out. Gung Jin Divine Fist. This punch had no smoke or fire aura, no power to speak of. It was like an old man doing morning exercises in the park. But suddenly, there was a terrible whistling sound in the sky. The whistling sound was getting louder and louder, as if a hurricane had passed through. A fist made of Gung Jin true essence rushed out of the void out of thin air. It was getting bigger and bigger, more and more solid. In a flash, the mountain-like fist instantly smashed on the 9-tailed giant crocodile. Roar! The huge crocodile did not even hold on for a second. It let out a sad roar and burst open unwillingly. A huge mushroom cloud rose in the sky, and sparks splashed everywhere. It was like fireworks blooming in the daytime. The billowing airwaves pushed in all directions, shaking the mountains and breaking countless trees. "Wow! Uncle Jiang's fireworks are so beautiful! And it's a crocodile!" The little girl Luo Fu's face was full of surprise. She pointed with her little finger and a pair of big watery eyes were wide open. She blinked and couldn't get enough of it. These fireworks were much bigger than the fireworks set off by her great-grandfather during the holidays. It was too imposing and spectacular. Chapter 1540. The crocodile scissors in Yi Chun's hand instantly cracked and turned into pieces. A quasi-Dao artifact had been destroyed by the artifact spirit. Yi Chun and the Zouwu under him were pushed a few hundred meters away by the Dharma power. For a time, men and horses were thrown off their feet. Many of the bandits were thrown into chaos. Everyone was like a withered leaf fluttering in the wind. The powerful shockwave struck them, and they felt extremely uncomfortable. It was as if their chest had been hit by a giant hammer. Those with lower cultivation levels even had their protective magical artifacts shattered. They instantly spat out a mouthful of blood, and the golden core cultivators fainted. All golden core cultivators, step back. Nascent soul cultivators, come with me. Yi Chun couldn't accept the defeat. He was too arrogant and didn't understand the concept of taking a step back. He waved his arms, and the blood-red flag behind him exploded with a terrifying wave of energy. It soared into the sky and charged towards Jiang Tian. Those large banners suddenly swayed, sweeping through the sky. Everywhere they passed, spatial cracks were everywhere, winding in the void like a spider web. It was a long flag that fluttered in the wind. The pole of the flag was like the sharpest spear, and the surface of the flag imitated the swaying of a crocodile tail. It even imitated Dharma laws. If a golden core cultivator was affected, his body and divine soul would be instantly destroyed. Even nascent soul cultivators wouldn't be able to protect themselves if they were pierced by the pole. Kill. Let them know that the bandit family isn't just for show. So what if he's a nascent soul heavenly lord? Let's attack him as a group. Even if we are tired, we must tire him to death. We've dominated the ruins of deity and even dared to attack the 9 guards of the emperor's palace. We've killed countless nobles. Why should we be afraid of him? At the same time, more than a dozen nascent soul stage bandits and nascent soul stage bandits all lunged at Jiang Tian crazily. They had all been through killing and had been tempered by war. Although they were cruel and bloody, they had their own principles. For example, to never be afraid of battle, to regard the glory of the great bandits as more important than their own lives. For example, to unite as one and trust their backs to their comrades. For example, to seek revenge at all costs. Even if they were to lose 1,000 men, they would still injure the enemy by 800. These rules were very different from those of cultivators who came from sects or clans. They didn't have blood ties or inheritances, so they had to engrave these rules and ideals into their bones. Otherwise, there would be no unity to speak of. At this moment, they'd faintly noticed that the outcome of their battle with Jiang Tian pointed towards disaster. However, none of them retreated, and they were brave and domineering to the extreme. More than a dozen nascent soul heavenly lords attacking at the same time was a terrifying scene. For a time, the most common elemental laws, the mutant laws, and even the laws of various demonic beasts and vicious birds all appeared, intertwining with each other like a giant net that covered the sky and covered the earth as it flooded towards Jiang Tian. Open! Jiang Tian pressed his fingers together and waved as he utilized the energy of the laws. The blade of the laws of gung metal swept out like a waterfall of the Milky Way, and it seemed to be capable of slicing through the chaos and dividing yin and yang. It was capable of destroying everything and was sharp to the extreme. Chila, Chila, the giant net, formed by the laws of a dozen nascent soul heavenly lords, was broken by Jiang Tian's blade of the laws of gung metal. Little girl, don't look. I'm going to kill these invaders next. Jiang Tian took a step forward and revealed a kind smile as he reminded little Luo Fu in a gentle voice, and then his gaze turned cold as he pointed forward. Bang! The head of a nascent soul bandit exploded. Even his nascent soul didn't manage to escape and was instantly crushed into powder by the laws of gung metal. His headless body fell from the sky with a rain of blood. Chila. Then, Jiang Tian waved his fingers. The laws of Kunpeng created a crack with a radius of 1,000 feet, which spread out in the shape of a fan and could cut through everything. Chila. The bodies of 2 nascent soul heavenly lords cracked and their inch-sized nascent souls floated out, screaming. They were then killed by Jiang Tian. At this moment, the 9 blood-red banners shot out explosively. The sharp flagpoles and spears pierced towards Jiang Tiandong. The smell of blood was extremely thick, and the banner that was completely condensed from the essence blood of an expert was extremely tough. It was like a red snake that coiled around, covering the sky and covering the sun as it tried to bind Jiang Tian. Break! Jiang Tian threw another punch. He didn't use any divine powers or laws. He fought with his body. This was the boldness of the strong. The 9 blood-red banners, which were originally extremely tough and durable, were torn to shreds by the fist energy like paper. The flagpole, which was made of an unknown type of precious metal, was also tragically snapped like a hemp pole. After all, this was the fist energy of a transcendent divine physique, which could even tear space apart. How can this kid's punch be so terrifying? Young master, let's retreat. It's never too late to take revenge. The rest of the nascent soul heavenly lords were shocked and wanted to retreat. The scene of Jiang Tian using his physical body to destroy 9 quasi-true treasure flags was too shocking. It made it impossible for them to estimate Jiang Tian's strength. I told you to retreat. Retreat. Why did you have to fight with him? Great, we're all dead now. Ying Long said angrily. I came here secretly to do the archaeology and finished it. Why did you have to come here and rob me? I can't accept this. The moment the 9 crimson flags were destroyed by Jiang Tian, Chun was seriously affected. He felt something in his throat and almost spurted out blood, but he still wanted to kill Jiang Tian. His eyes were full of viciousness. You can't accept this? You won't be able to accept this after I kill you. He saw that Jiang Tian had changed from defense to offense. He stepped on the air and moved 10 miles in a blink. His black hair fluttered in the wind. He clenched his right hand and a peerless thunder blade appeared. There were countless talisman arrays on it. The thunder art was Yang and was also the bane of monster cultivators. It could beat them back to their original form and even make them return to their ancestral form. It could disperse their Dharma power and kill them easily. Clang. Jiang Tian's moves were simple and violent, as if he was going to split Mount Hua. He raised his purple lightning thunder blade high up in the air and slashed down like a heavenly river. Part of Jiang Tian's thunder laws came from the bloodline of the divine beast Thunder Centipede, while the other part was formed from the Taotia's return to origin thunder tribulations. It contained a massive amount of nascent soul thunder tribulations, which was extremely terrifying and powerful. Its destructive power was unparalleled. Jiang Tian controlled the Dharma laws and attacked very quickly. All his attacks were as easy and natural as if they were at his fingertips. Protect the young master. Kill. The great bandits of the Yi family were loyal and fearless of death. 5 nascent soul stage cultivators shot into the sky at the same time, and they even took the initiative to stop Jiang Tian's guard, Yi Chun. Rumble. They didn't hesitate to detonate their nascent souls and create an earth-shattering wave of essence chi to attack the purple thunderblade. This was an incomparably tragic scene. 5 nascent souls exploded in a row, which was comparable to at least 10 large nuclear weapons. The sky was shaking, the sun and the moon were upside down, and the world was in chaos. Space cracks were everywhere and everything within 100 miles was shaking. Many beasts were trembling and crouching on the ground. Those nearby even exploded. If it weren't for Jiang Tian activating a barrier to protect the Heavenly Village's villagers during the battle, and Long Xingnan also activating the Emperor Nine Dragons Law to form a dragon shield, the Heavenly Village's villagers would have been turned into dust immediately. Yi Chun roared. His vertical pupils suddenly shrank to the size of a needle tip and tears of blood flowed down his face. He gritted his teeth and regretted it to the extreme. He didn't expect that his hesitation would kill 5 of his close comrades and loyal followers. That was a great loss. Chapter 1541. There were only about 20 nascent soul cultivators in the Yi clan. Now, he had lost 5 of them. Moreover, these brothers had fought with him in the past. They were as close as real brothers. Now that they had died, how could he not feel pain? However, even if their nascent souls self-destructed, they only managed to tear a crack on Jiang Tian's purple lightning saber and stop it from slashing down for a moment. The next moment, with a clang, the purple lightning saber tore through the self-destructing nascent souls and slashed down at Yi Chun. Big brother. Young master, run. Ying Long and the remaining nascent souls protected Yi Chun and ran. They had already realized that Jiang Tian's strength was enough to crush them. The other Golden Core cultivators and bandits were also scared out of their wits, and they all ran away. They hated that their parents had not given birth to them with 2 more legs. You want to run? Can you guys run? Jiang Tian sneered and pointed at Yi Chun's back. The sea-calming ice god's laws were instantly executed. At this time, the sea-calming ice god's laws had completely absorbed and refined the Xianming cold spring, becoming a nomological true seal. It was easy to execute, and its power was more than 10 times the original. As Jiang Tian pointed in the air, the space within 100 meters around Yi Chun suddenly froze and turned into an iron plate. Yi Chun, who was in the middle of it, found it difficult to even move his fingers, let alone escape. He was like a specimen in amber, completely still. However, his consciousness was still there. He screamed in his heart, "This is the most powerful spatial law. Heavens! This person's physical body, divine sense, and laws are all extremely powerful. Moreover, there is more than one law. How can there be such a freak and monster in the world? At this moment, his heart was filled with deep fear and regret. If he had known that this person was so strong, he would not have offended him. He should not have come to this place. At this moment, whoosh, traversing 1,000 mountains, Ying Long let out a roar, and his entire being transformed into a huge Dharma form of pangolin. The golden scales all over his body vibrated and then closed tightly. His body spun rapidly, and his sharp head drilled into the fixed space like a diamond drill. His claws danced wildly like heavenly knives, tearing out pieces of space fragments. This kid is amazing. Jiang Tian's heart moved slightly, but he did not stop him. The sea-calming ice god's forbidden domain that he had just used was only 1/10 of his strength. The area was very small, and the laws he had released were not solid enough. However, this was the first time someone had been able to break through his sea-calming ice god's spatial laws. Moreover, this brat was at the nascent soul realm. It seemed that he had the innate bloodline ability of the pangolin, which was terrifyingly powerful. No wonder he was able to enter and exit the imperial mausoleum of the ruins of immortality, which was heavily guarded and filled with countless forbidden formations. He really did have some skill. After a full 3 seconds, Ying Long finally opened up a passage in the frozen space and dragged Yi Chun out. Why didn't he do anything? At this moment, he also felt very strange because 3 seconds was not short for cultivators. With Jiang Tian's strength, it was enough to kill him 10 times. However, in a hurry, his life was in danger, and he didn't have time to think carefully. He went into the mountain with a swoosh and disappeared in a blink. Master, we can't let these people go easily, or we'll be releasing a tiger back to the mountain. Ghost Wolf said to Jiang Tian with his immortal will. Can he run away? Jiang Tian smiled contemptuously. Back then, when he was deep in the magma on Earth, the Kunpeng golden core had just been condensed and it could cross the endless magma crust and return. Ying Long's pangolin bloodline was indeed powerful and the laws he controlled were also terrifying, but compared with the Kunpeng's laws that could destroy 3,000 worlds, he was just a mouse that was not worth mentioning at all. Ghost Wolf hurriedly shut his mouth. His surname is also Ying? In the ancient cultivation world, the surname Ying was said to be derived from Ying Long, which was the earth of the 5 elements. So, pangolin, earth-drilling mouse, and other demonic cultivators like to use this surname to make themselves look good. However, Ying Ziyu's surname was said to be given by Emperor Zhongli himself. However, Jiang Tian's heart slightly moved. Could this kid be Ying Ziyu's descendant or of the same race? Originally, Jiang Tian wanted to kill this guy directly, but thinking of this, he had to be merciful. Besides, whether it was Ying Long or Yi Chun, these big bandits were actually subverters and rebels of the world order of the ruins of immortality. Although they were reckless and cruel, they belonged to a group of forces that could be united, used, and transformed. Thinking of this, the 30-foot divine disc suddenly bloomed behind Jiang Tian and the Kunpeng's laws of speed suddenly lit up and were released. I'll catch. I'll catch. I'll drill. I'll drill. Open. 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 At this time, in the depths of the earth thousands of miles away, Ying Long was quickly waving his claws and turning his body, activating the earth escape technique and the earth opening technique. The moment the endless rocks and soil felt the earth opening technique, they separated like flowing water and even like air. His speed was terrifying. Like a golden streamer, he quickly shuttled through the ground and traveled hundreds of miles in an instant. He shouldn't be able to catch up with me. Ying Long was exhausted after unleashing the power of laws for such a long time. His nascent soul was burned to the point that it almost cracked. The consumption was extremely serious, and he was panting heavily. At this time, he had run thousands of miles away and felt a little safer. After he breathed a sigh of relief, he couldn't help but curse angrily. Damn you, Yi Chun. I came here to do archaeology and historical research. I was free and elegant. Why did you have to follow me and make such a big fuss and offend a peak-stage nascent soul realm master? If it weren't for you, I would have gotten those precious relics. Yi Chun, who was tied to his back with primordial chi and laws, cried silently and gritted his teeth. He didn't say a word, grieving for his dead brothers. Okay, don't cry. Ying Long couldn't bear it and comforted him. It's not your fault. That punk is so ferocious. He will probably attack us the moment he sees us. Fuck, the Heavenly Village is such a poor and remote place. It has never been able to cultivate. How did such an expert appear? It's too sinister. When we return and your father asks, we will speak in unison. We will say that we encountered a divine general from the Ruins Emperor's palace and fought with them. Your father hates the Ruins Emperor's royal family the most. I believe he won't punish us. As for those who died, it's useless even if you cry. I might as well dig a few more tombs and give them some compensation. Yi-chun remained silent for a long time. Suddenly, he gritted his teeth and shouted, I want revenge. My brothers can't die unjustly. I'll tell my father the truth. Even if he kills me, I don't care at all. However, I request my father to head to the lower realm and kill that cultivator from the Heavenly Village. Avenge them. Chapter 1542. Revenge? Do you think you still have a chance? Right at this moment, a bright streak of light suddenly shot out from the ground in front of him. It was as fast as a bolt of lightning. Fuck, this guy is here. Ying Long was shocked and wanted to dodge, but it was too late. The flowing light was like a peerless heavenly blade, easily cutting through the thick soil and mountain rocks. It turned into a Kuan Peng godly spirit with a human head and a bird body. Its steel-like claws suddenly grabbed Ying Long and Yi-chun like an eagle grabbing a chick. Break. Ying Long struggled crazily and used all kinds of secret space arts, trying to tear the giant claws and escape. But it was not necessary at all. He only felt the ground rumble and the soil spread like water waves. In an instant, his eyes lit up and he had returned to the sky above the Heavenly Village. Clang, clang. Ying Long and Yi-chun were heavily smashed to the ground, smashing out two huge craters. They were dizzy from the fall. Then, a shackle formed by the ice god's law was placed on them and they were firmly imprisoned, unable to move at all. You still want to run? How fast do you think you can run? Jiang Tian stepped on the air and flew over. His long black hair fluttered in the wind and his clothes fluttered as he looked down at the two of them mockingly. Kill me if you have the guts. Yi-chun stiffened his neck and gnashed his teeth. He looked like a bandit as he threatened fiercely. The Yi family of the Great Ko is not to be trifled with. If there is a need for revenge, I will kill all the savages in the Heavenly Village and even the entire Thousand Mountains range. Smith. Jiang Tian slapped him in the face, making his nose bleed, and he flew a few hundred meters away like a wheel. Is the Yi family of the Great Ko so great? They are just a few stinky crocodiles who rob people. How dare they challenge me? What's different about you? I can still beat you. Jiang Tian rubbed his palms and mocked. It's different. You're just thick-skinned. Your skin is rough and your flesh is thick like the corner of a city wall. It hurts my palms. You. Yi-chun clenched his teeth, only to find that his teeth had fallen out. He was enraged to the extreme. His vertical pupils glared at Jiang Tian with hatred. In any case, he was still a member of the Great Ko clan. Who dared to humiliate him like this? Still not submitting? I'll kill you. The divine disc behind Jiang Tian's back flashed, and the vermilion bird True Flame burst out, wanting to burn him to ashes. Wait, we're people with backing. Ying Long stopped him and snorted coldly. Backstage. Jiang Tian stabilized the vermilion bird primordial fire laws. Balls of flames were firmly fixed less than 3 meters away from Yi-chun, humming with interest. Kid, you're really strong. You've killed quite a few of our nascent soul brothers. You have the guts to even provoke the Great Ko clan. Ying Long knelt on the ground, but he still straightened his neck and said proudly, however, no matter how strong you are, can you be stronger than Kong Taechu? No matter how fierce you are, can you be fiercer than him? Kong Taechu, go out and find out what kind of person he is. He even killed the 3 guards of the Ruins of Immortality. Even Prince Chunyu was killed. Even Grand Chancellor Yen Hua didn't dare to fight him and ran away with his tail between his legs. 2 days ago, he even killed the divine Emperor Hanshi in this world. He's an overlord of a generation. May I ask if you're afraid of him? Kong Teichu is indeed very strong, but what does that have to do with you? Jiang Tian was stunned. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Don't you know that Kong Teichu is my big brother? We're sworn brothers. We're so close that we wear the same pants. Ying Long did not know what half a dime meant, but he could roughly understand. His face was full of arrogance and pride. He was so arrogant that there was no end to it. We even drank together last night. He values my research results about the ancient Dao dynasty very much. He even called me his good brother. He anxiously roared with a pale face. To tell you the truth, it was he who personally instructed me to come here to conduct an archaeological excavation. Do you want to go against him? He's the emperor of this world now. At this moment, Luo Shou, Luo Sen and the others looked at each other and showed some fear. Luo Shou frowned and said, if Kong Teichu really asked him to excavate perfected Cultivator Zhao's tomb for archaeological research, we can't be too stubborn. After all, it's also very important to uncover the truth of history. Perfected Cultivator Zhao's spirit in heaven will also understand. Jiang Tian was overjoyed. This kid was also a funny person. He actually bragged that he knew him. Why didn't he know him? He even said that he asked him to excavate the tomb. How shameless. Next to him, Long Xingnan and Bai Muxue also covered their mouths and laughed. They only thought that this Ying Long was too funny. What are you laughing at? My brother Kong Teichu is coming. Can you stop him? Seeing their strange expressions, Ying Long was enraged. Then he softened his tone and said with disdain, brother, a wise man submits to circumstances. You're definitely no match for Kong Teichu. He'll kill you with one finger. Besides, we didn't cause any losses. Instead, many of my brothers were killed by you. Don't go too far. Let us go and treat us with good wine and meat. I'll plead for you in front of my brother Tai Chu. Bullshit. Keep bragging. Zhang Qingyang snickered and flew forward, kicking him in the chest. Ying Long rolled on the ground and said fiercely, little bastard, you're just a golden core cultivator. How dare you hit your nascent soul, grandpa? If my brother Kong Teichu comes, shut up. Zhang Qingyang interrupted him ruthlessly and pointed at Jiang Tian. You're blind. The Tai Chu Divine Lord is right in front of you, but you don't know him. Do you want to die? Yi Chun looked at Jiang Tian in disbelief. Then, the shock on his face gradually turned into extreme admiration. He said loudly, you're the Tai Chu Divine Lord. You are my idol. By then, Jiang Tian's name had almost spread across the entire ruins of deity. Not only were the descendants of the ruins emperor shocked, but he was also a well-known figure. In the Great Ko clan, it was like thunder to the ears. Who didn't know about it? However, unlike the ruins of deity, most people in the Deku family regarded Kong Teichu as their idol and comrade. In their eyes, Jiang Taichu was a great bandit as well, and he was even ferocious and overbearing, not inferior to them in the slightest. It's really Kong Teichu. Ying Long was also dumbfounded and couldn't believe it. It couldn't be such a coincidence. He had robbed countless tombs of perfected cultivators, but today he had run into Kong Teichu. However, on second thought, there was only one nascent soul cultivator in this world, Sword Venerable Ao Tian. Why would a peerless heavenly lord suddenly appear? Besides, this person controlled a lot of laws, which was the same as the rumor that Kong Teichu was only at the nascent soul level, but he could control many laws and fight with soul formation cultivators. It was very likely. I'm Long Xingnan, the saintess of the dragon-rearing sect in the Hylon world and the disciple of the Tai Chu Divine Lord. Greetings, fellow Taoist. Long Xingnan took a step forward and executed the laws of the 9 dragons. True dragons of laws surrounded her body and her aura was earth-shattering. Ying Long was so frightened that his face trembled. I'm Sword Venerable Ao Tian, the Realm Master of Penglai World, a small cultivator under the Tai Chu Divine Lord. Sword Venerable Ao Tian also took a step forward and executed the laws of sword energy. Peerless swords of laws rushed into the sky as if they were going to break the sky. In the end, I'm Gei Lang, the captain of the Dark Crow Guards in the ruins of deity. I'm now under the command of the Tai Chu Divine Lord. Gui Lang also took a step forward and waved his air-piercing blade, easily displaying the laws of space. Do you still not believe me? Get down on your knees and surrender. Ying Long had been chased by Gui Lang before. Even though he was far away, he could still feel his energy and laws. Then he no longer had any doubts. The young man in front of him was the famous Kong Taechu. Damn, what a disgrace. It's really Kong Taechu. For a moment, he was so embarrassed that he wanted to hide in a hole and disappear in front of everyone. He had bragged that he was Qin Haodong's good brother and that he had gotten his permission to drink with him. He had never thought that Qin Haodong would be right in front of him. Oh God! Everyone in the heavenly village couldn't believe it either. They had never thought that they would be able to eat and drink with Kong Taechu. When I first saw him, I only thought he looked ordinary, but his energy was extraordinary. When his identity was revealed, he was indeed extraordinary. Luo Shou stroked his goatee and trembled with excitement. He's actually the great hero Kong Taechu, the Kong Taechu who avenged perfected Lord Zhao. Luo Sen and the other young hunters couldn't believe it. Their eyes were filled with worship, as if they were believers who had seen a god. Uncle Jiang is a great hero. The great hero who defeated the divine general and divine emperor of the ruins of immortality. The great hero who avenged perfected Lord Zhao. Luo Fu and the children cheered excitedly and jumped up and down. However, compared to shame, Ying Long's heart was filled with fear. Jiang Taichu was a famous peerless fiend who could easily annihilate clans, sects, armies, and everything. Whether it was the 9 guards of the ruins emperor or the 100 Moon Academy's chancellor, they were all wiped out when they met Kong Taechu. Even divine Emperor Hanshi was killed by him. But today he had offended him time and time again, and had spoken rudely to him. As a divine lord of the divinity transformation stage, how could he allow others to blaspheme him so easily? He would definitely kill Yi Chun and himself to protect his peerless dignity. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but tremble, and the scales all over his body made a clanging sound. He said with a sobbing voice, "Grand Primordium Divine Lord, I didn't mean to offend you today. I'm really here for archaeological research. Please spare me this once. Grand Primordium Divine Lord, if you want to punish me, kill me." Yi Chun straightened his body and said fearlessly, "Ying Long is indeed an expert. Ying Long is indeed an archaeologist. He only excavates tombs, but he never kills people. I'm the one who caused all of this. You sure aren't afraid of death." Jiang Tian's expression was cold as he nodded in his heart. In fact, the strong were respected. It was common for powerful cultivators to bully the weak and kill others for their treasures. Be it Yi Chun or Ying Long, they were not bad in nature despite having their flaws. At the very least, Yi Chun was very loyal. "I'm afraid." Yi Chun trembled, but he still said loudly with tears in his eyes, "But I can't harm my brother. But I can't harm my brother. I will take responsibility for my own actions." "You saw it too. Ying Long did not kill you from the beginning to the end. I believe that with Grand Primordium Divine Lord's magnanimity, you will definitely not make things difficult for him. All right, you want to be a hero? I'll grant you your wish." Jiang Tian waved his hand and condensed the gung metal nomological laws into a saber before slashing down. Chapter 1543. Ying Long, I'll take my leave first. Yi Chun had a look of despair as he closed his eyes and shouted with tears streaming down his face, "In my next life, let's fight the universe again and kill the ruins emperor together." "Fuck, you are still bragging." Ying Long had a sorrowful expression as he sighed regretfully. "In your next life, don't be so rash. Kill whoever you want. Once you encounter an expert, it's very easy to die." Everyone thought that Jiang Tian would kill Yi Chun with a single strike. But to their surprise, with 2 crisp cracking sounds, the law shackles on Yi Chun and Ying Long's bodies cracked and disappeared. "Senior Grand Primordium, why you won't kill me?" Yi Chun was dumbfounded and filled with disbelief. Kong Taechu, might be infamous for fighting in the universe, but I'm not someone who kills the innocent." Jiang Tian had a calm expression as he said unhurriedly, You have done well in resisting the Ruins Emperor. Just based on that, I'll give you a chance. Grand Primordium Divine Lord is indeed a Divine Lord. You are so magnanimous. Ying Long was overjoyed as he pulled Yi Chun to Jiang Tian. They bowed respectfully and said in unison, Divine Lord, this life of yours is yours. From now on, I'm willing to serve under Senior Grand Primordium and be at your beck and call. No one will dare disobey your orders. To tell you the truth, I want to destroy the Ruins Emperor and wipe out all evil. With the war about to begin, it's indeed time to use people. Jiang Tian said leisurely, however, my team is a revolutionary army. But my troop is a revolutionary troop. It is a troop that fights to reclaim our homeland and to protect the common people. We have discipline and rules. Not just any bandit can join us. I'd rather go without than have something substandard. If you can't abide by my rules, it's best you go your separate ways. As long as Senior Grand Primordium is willing to take us in and lead us to conquer the ruins of immortality, we will abide by the rules no matter how strict they are. We won't dare violate them. The two said without hesitation. All right, get up. Jiang Tian agreed and said leisurely, Senior Grand Primordial Divine Lord Zhao Yong fought against his homeland. True Monarch Zhao is a predecessor who fought to protect his homeland. You are not allowed to touch his tomb. Understood. After Ying Long and Yi Chun got up, they said in an orderly manner, My lord, where should we attack next? Our great Ko's Yi clan has long been impatient to follow Senior Tai Chu into the battlefield. Yi Chun said impatiently. The Deku family had been in conflict with the Ruins Emperor's lineage for many years. Both sides had suffered casualties and the grudge ran deep. Yi Chun was eager to seek revenge. I haven't prepared enough. I haven't reached the level where I can compete with a peak stage divine transformation realm warrior. I have to break through to the nascent soul realm as soon as possible. Jiang Tian said indifferently, Now, we have a rough idea of the wood-type material. It's the pearl grass tree from the Steel Forest Forbidden Area. But it's still a water-type material? Yi Chun immediately patted his chest and said passionately, Don't worry about it. My great Ko family has burned, killed, and plundered for thousands of years, and has accumulated quite a lot. The 7 great pirate families are willing to open their treasury to the Lord. If Senior needs anything, you can use it as you wish. It's our honor. What I need is extraordinary. It's either the blood of 10,000 golden cores and 100 nascent souls, or immortal and divine materials. You might not have them. Jiang Tian said with a wry smile. 10,000 golden cores and 100 nascent souls. Immortal and divine materials. Yi Chun's eyes almost popped out when he heard that. As far as he knew, although the Yi clan and the other great pirate families had a strong foundation, they might not have materials of such level. Let's go back and report to the family. If we have them, we'll definitely inform you. Ying Long said. Even if we don't have them, we'll think of a way to search for them. We'll find them even if we have to turn the ruins of immortality upside down. Yi Chun's blood boiled as he said excitedly with a face full of anticipation. When the time comes, the 7 great pirate families will join forces with Senior Tai Chu. We'll conquer the ruins of immortality together and overthrow the Ruins Emperor's throne. Yi Chun took out a jade slip and handed it to Jiang Tian. On it was information about the territories the 7 great pirate families occupied in the various worlds, strongholds, secret signals, and so on. Then, he gave Jiang Tian a runic token and said solemnly, Senior, this is the token of the 7 great pirate families' alliance. If you need any help, just look for our strongholds. They will make the appropriate arrangements. Jiang Tian took it and asked, Actually, I've always been curious. I've always been very curious. What exactly are the origins of your 7 great pirate clans? It should be related to the ancient heavenly courts, right? Senior, your plans are flawless. Exactly. Yi Chun's face was filled with admiration as he said, The 7 great pirates were originally descendants of the heavenly masters and divine generals of the ancient heavenly courts. For example, my family is a descendant of Patriarch Heavenly Crocodile, Yi Gongming, one of the 10 divine generals. As for Ying Long, he's a descendant of divine general Ying Zihui. Back then, after the breaking era, many worlds were embedded in the orbit of Alpha Centauri. The world was in chaos, with volcanoes erupting, floods, earthquakes, and snow disasters constantly erupting. It was like the beginning of chaos. More than half of the cultivators and mortals died. Following that, it was the era of Tao damage. Many gods of the ancient heavenly courts suddenly realized that the cultivation techniques they cultivated in were in conflict with the great Tao of heaven and earth. They could not produce even a tenth of their strength. Yet, the Ruins Emperor's lineage invaded from Alpha Centauri without any prior notice. They destroyed the immortal ground and shook the foundation. Ancient sages like Ao Emperor perished one after another. Their defeat was like a landslide. The 4 heavenly masters and 10 divine generals perished. Their descendants could only lay low and conceal their identities. They endured silently and struggled to survive, avoiding the Ruins Emperor's pursuit. However, the glorious achievements of our ancestors and the blood feud were not forgotten by the juniors. After thousands of years of accumulation, we gradually recovered our strength and accumulated the means to fight the Ruins Emperor, allowing us to rise once again. We brandished our swords brazenly and took over the mountains as kings. We burned, killed, and plundered everywhere. To put it simply, we sought the Ruins Emperor's wrath and gradually made a name for ourselves as the 7 great pirate families. So all of you are from famous lineages. You have extraordinary origins. Jiang Tian nodded slightly, then smiled and said, however, we still need to pay attention to strategy. The so-called strategy of war, in a nutshell, was to reduce the number of enemies and increase the number of people on one side. All of you will only incur the wrath of the heavens and the wrath of man if you keep on killing. You need to find a target. Our enemy is the Ruins Emperor. The other factions, those who resist the Ruins Emperor, as well as those who are neutral, can be united and used. I understand. After meeting my father, I will definitely pass on your advice. Yi Chun said reverently. Jiang Tian suddenly looked at Ying Long and asked, Ying Long, is there a person named Ying Ziyu in your genealogy? He's one of my distant ancestors. He's the brother of my distant ancestral land's god Ying Ziyu. Senior, how do you know him? Ying Long was perplexed. I once met him on Earth in the solar system. Jiang Tian sighed wistfully. He immediately recounted how he had entered the Tunguska Fiend Lake and met the excavation vanguard, as well as how he had received their aid. 3,000 warriors, digging deep into the earth, slumbering in the core. For 100,000 years, their corpses remain, their obsessions undying. Their shouts are as magnificent as a song. After hearing the story of his ancestor, Ying Long was deeply moved. He was astounded. Compared to the bloody struggles of his ancestors, the tomb digging he was proud of was nothing worth mentioning. After Ying Long and Yi Chun bade farewell and left, Jiang Tian left the heavenly village a set of body-tempering cultivation techniques and many protective treasures. Under the reluctant gazes of the heavenly village's villagers and little Luofu's gentle sobs, they flew towards the forbidden land of the Steels. A day passed in the blink of an eye. In the central region of the mountain range, peaks that were more than 100,000 feet tall rose from the ground. They were like gigantic swords that pierced the heavens. They had a very sharp aura. And looking down from high in the sky, between the peaks was a gigantic tree that was 10,000 feet tall. It looked like it was carved out of jade. Its leaves and branches were green and glossy, emitting a resplendent glow. The surrounding spiritual energy lingered like clouds and mist, making it look very mesmerizing. Many people stopped outside the forbidden land, standing in the air and looking around. They were apparently Jiang Tian and the others. It's indeed the Pearl Tree. Jiang Tian was moved. The Pearl Tree was very old. It had existed since the Battle of the Deity Ground 10,000 years ago, or even older. It could be traced back to before the interstellar wanderings. The spirit chi it contained was extremely dense and pure, almost like that of a deity material. Its function. It could definitely help Jiang Tian form the true seal of the law of wood and help the whirling divine tree form the nascent soul. Chapter 1544. There were thousands of steels around the giant tree. Some of them had already collapsed after 10,000 years of wind and rain. The words on them were already blurred, giving people an ancient feeling. This is the training ground and encampment of the guards of the ancient heavenly courts in the deity ground. They absorbed the spirit chi of the pearl tree to increase their power. When the ruins emperor's army invaded, the two sides fought a fierce battle and perished together with the enemy. Jiang Tian scanned with his immortal will and exclaimed, "These steels are their tombs." That battle was indeed very tragic. There were still traces of the Grand Tao in the sky, which were created by the powerful soul formation cultivators 10,000 years ago. They were like nuclear radiation and hadn't disappeared after 10,000 years. There were some miraculous sights such as the one-line sky and the flying mountain. But Jiang Tian knew that they weren't created by natural power. They were created by the overlords 10,000 years ago with their Dharma power or by smashing the mountains from the sky. There were sword marks, knife marks and arrow holes all over the mountains and the ground. Some ancient warships made entirely of black iron and bronze, mottled with divine blood, were embedded on the ground in disarray. They were like old generals who had survived hundreds of battles. Even now, they were still towering and emitting magical power fluctuations. Besides, there were also some hidden restrictions and arrays in the white mist. Some of them were set up by the local cultivators of the deity ground or the descendants of the ruins emperor. It's indeed a forbidden place. Jiang Tian retracted his immortal will and exclaimed. Those arrays had not lost their power and were abnormally powerful, like poisonous snakes that could easily kill nascent soul heavenly lords and severely injure soul formation grand cultivators once they were unleashed. Apparently, they were even more terrifying. Jiang Tian discovered that there were female cultivators with sorrowful expressions. They were wearing the same robes and gathered on the hillside around the forbidden area. They were discussing spiritedly. The leader was the servant of Prince Chunyu, who Jiang Tian had met once in the North Sea. She was a level 1 soul formation cultivator. It was Jiang and I. I heard that Kong Teichu is near the fallen leaf lake. Why can't we find him when we go there? A female cultivator with an oval-shaped face said with reddened eyes. Although there is no detailed news, I think he must have been seriously injured after killing Divine Emperor Hanshi. He should be hiding now. Jiang and I sighed helplessly. This person seems to act recklessly, but he's actually very sneaky and cautious. He's already shut down the teleportation formations of the Northern Sea Realm, the Dragon Gate Realm, and the Ingzhou Realm. He's clearly accumulating strength and avoiding the brunt of the attack. He's despicable and shameless. He won with an unfair advantage. The oval-faced female cultivator was an early-stage nascent soul cultivator. He's just a nascent soul cultivator. He's as weak as a chicken or a dog. Prince Chunyu, Yu Qilin, and even Emperor Hanshi must have been ambushed by him. Her appearance was very beautiful and gentle, and her figure was even more exquisite. She was extremely graceful, but her words were extremely vicious. After we find this treasure, we will find this Kong Teichu even if we have to dig 3 feet into the ground of Penglai. We'll cut him into pieces and extract his divine soul to burn in the fiend fire for 1,000 years. Yu Qilin was known as Lord Peerless. He was kind, but he died in the hands of Kong Teichu. Prince Chunyu was handsome and had a noble background. He had gone through countless trials to protect the peace of the deity ruins, but he was also killed by this bastard. Kong Teichu is cruel and ruthless. He invaded our territory and destroyed our country. He deserves to die. He's just a despicable and shameless person. He came from the desolate solar system and didn't have much power. He shut down all the teleportation formations and he's just hiding. He doesn't dare to fight with us elites. When I see him, I'll slap him to death with a single slap. I'll avenge my idol, Prince Chunyu. As for the other female cultivators, although most of them were only at the Golden Core realm, Their verbal skills were top-notch. They were all filled with righteous indignation, cursing and ridiculing Jiang Tianji. Some of them even cried. That oval-faced female cultivator is called Su Ruoming. She's the daughter of a noble and is known as a princess in the deity ruins. She's also a winner of the God of War list, and her ranking is higher than mine. Long Shengnan explained with her divine will. They're all admirers of Yu Qilin and Prince Chunyu. They even have an organization. For example, when Yu Qilin participates in the God of War list trial, these members will cheer him on or provide him with heavenly treasures to promote his achievements. Oh, they're kind of like the fan clubs of celebrities on Earth. Yu Qilin and Prince Chunyu are doing much better than me. They have so many female fans. I don't have any. Jiang Tian's expression was very calm. He suddenly realized what was going on, and he was observing these female fans with interest. There's someone else. Suddenly, Sword Venerable Ao Tian exclaimed. Many flying swords with long tails let out loud rumbling sounds. They were like supersonic fighter jets, arcing through the air and getting closer to the steel forest forbidden grounds. The disciples of the academy are here to search for treasures. You useless cultivators and ants, back off now. An arrogant voice came from the sky. It was like a deity's voice, shouting at Jiang Tian and the others. The flying swords did not slow down in the slightest. With an arrogant aura, they charged straight at Jiang Tian and the others. Long Xingnan wasn't happy. She snorted and was about to attack them. Jiang Tian waved his hand and said casually, "Don't fight them. Let's wait and see." The 100 Moons Academy was different from the palace of the Ruins Emperor. Most of the disciples were actually descendants of the deity ground. They were only loyal to the Ruins Emperor because they had received the grace of the Ruins Emperor's empire and didn't know the truth, so they became enemies with Jiang Tian. At least for the time being, Jiang Tian didn't want to kill them as long as they didn't provoke him, and it wasn't time to fight to the death. Jiang Tian led the others to the side. At the same time, they used their divine powers to change their appearances. Jiang Tian had seen the people on the swords before. They were the overlords on the war god roll of the ruins of deity and the elites of the academy. Cheng Aojuan, Su Changqing, Luo Changshan and the others all had extraordinary backgrounds. Senior brother Cheng. You're here too. Jiang and I, Su Ruoming, and the other female cultivators all soared into the sky to greet him. They bowed and clasped their fists with adoration. Jiang and I, Sister Ruoming. Cheng Aojuan, Su Changqing, Luo Changshan and the other young talents greeted them and quickly got along well with them. All the teleportation portals here, including the one that Divine Emperor Hanshi and the White Tiger Guard used as secret artifact, have been closed or even destroyed. If we hadn't sacrificed 3 geniuses on the God of War ranking, we wouldn't have made it here. As it turned out, they had captured a group of roaming cavalry in the Below Sea world, searched their souls, and obtained an ancient world cave teleportation formation, which allowed them to enter this world. The Emperor of the Ruins and the Tianmong Grotto Heaven are on business. Those who are not involved should leave now. Don't say that we didn't warn you. With a shout full of indifference and arrogance, more cloud buildings and flying boats arrived. Their momentum was even grander than the flying sword cultivators of the academy, and they were extremely arrogant and overbearing. That kid from the Tianmong Grotto Heaven is only about the same level as us, but he dares to show off just because he picked up a poor princess. Even Cheng Ao Jun and the others showed a hint of envy and jealousy as they spoke to him through their divine sense. Those true artifacts and quasi-Dao artifacts could be used for spacewalking or even interstellar travel. They were priceless for both civilian and military use. In the 100 Moon Academy, apart from the Chancellor and the princes, even the elites on the War God roll weren't qualified to have them. On the largest cloud tower, the eaves were raised and the arches were connected. There were carved corridors and paintings and there were flashing lights. It was mainly made of divine feather purple gold and inlaid with countless precious crystals to form a complex array. It emitted terrifying Dharma power waves and many of them had reached the level of a true array, able to withstand a blow from a soul formation overlord. Even a nascent soul cultivator wouldn't be able to move it. It was priceless and extremely rare in this world. Those who could control such a cloud tower were obviously rich and noble. Ants from the lower worlds are indeed as timid as mice. Many young men and women gathered. There were hundreds of them, and most of them were golden core cultivators. There were also a dozen nascent soul cultivators. The leader was a man in a luxurious robe with wide sleeves. He looked handsome and extraordinary. He didn't look old, but he was already a mid-stage nascent soul cultivator. Next to him stood a woman in golden armor with a phoenix crown on her head. She was full of heroic spirit and held a Tao artifact saber. Her cultivation was at the late nascent soul stage, which was slightly higher. Master, this is Zhao Shanhe, the Zongzi of the Tianmong Grotto Heaven, one of the 6 grotto heavens in the ruins of deity. Ghost Wolf had already turned into an old servant in black. His pupils contracted and he immediately sent a voice transmission with his immortal will. Chapter 1545. Jiang Tian nodded slightly. Anyone who dared to call themselves a grotto heaven was definitely the strongest in the sect. Furthermore, they had to occupy a mystic realm and dominate 1,000,000 miles. In the ruins of immortality, there were only 6 grotto heavens among the thousands of sections. Although they were weaker than the academy, their strength was not to be underestimated. However, when Jiang Tian saw the numerous young men faintly surrounding the woman with the phoenix coronet and using her as the core, he couldn't help but ask with a smile, "This woman seems to have an extraordinary status." "Princess Tingyu." Ghost Wolf's expression turned solemn as he asked in puzzlement, "Divine Emperor Hanshi's daughter. Her cultivation level is very high and her talent is extremely high. However, it said that she and her mother, the divine consort, fought for the rights to the harem with the divine empress. After losing, she was banished to the cold palace by the divine emperor and hasn't come out for 300 years. Why is she being released today? The ruins emperor has now mobilized all his people. As long as they can kill, who doesn't come out?" Jiang Tian said mockingly. At that moment, Sheng Aojuan took a step forward and cupped his fists. "Princess Tingyu, fellow Taoist descendant, we are here under the Academy's orders to search for or destroy the various ancient treasures in this world. Please cooperate with us." One was the top of the Academy's God of War list, while the other was the son of the Tianmong Grotto Heaven's sect master. The Pearl Orchid Tree is a supreme treasure. The Academy doesn't deserve to have it. It belongs to the Ruins Emperor's Palace and the Tianmong Grotto Heaven. Zhao Shanhe didn't want to pass on his responsibility and said arrogantly, "The orders of the Ruins Emperor's Palace rule the world. Who dares to disobey? You must have a death wish." Princess Tingyu also shouted coldly, "You disciples of the Academy are but lowly commoners from the lower realm, slaves of the Ruins Emperor's royal family. Do you think you can compete with me? You want us to cooperate? If you dare to offend the princess, that's a capital offense." Zhao Shanhe said arrogantly. Cheng Aojuan was displeased. After a moment of silence, he said, "I heard that the restriction here is extremely powerful. Only soul formation experts can open it. Neither you nor I can do it alone. Why don't we work together to open the restriction and retrieve the Pearl Orchid Tree? We'll bring it to the ruins of immortality. As for who it belongs to, it will be decided by the God of Swords and the Academy's teacher. What do you think, Your Highness?" "All right, I'll give you a chance to redeem yourselves. Work hard for this princess, and I'll reward you handsomely." Princess Tingyu and Zhao Shanhe discussed for a while before nodding with an arrogant look on their faces. She was extremely arrogant and spoke bluntly. "According to the observation and calculation of our Academy's math chancellor, in an hour's time, the protective restriction and formation of the steel forest will be at its weakest in 1,000 years. How about we work together to blast it open then?" Cheng Aojuan said. "Yes." Princess Tingyu made a soft sound of acknowledgement. She turned around and entered the attic of Cloud Tower. She did not appear again. The many cultivators present, be it the Academy's disciples or the royalty of the Tianmong Grotto Heaven and the Ruins Emperor's Palace, were silent and solemn. Most of them were swallowing pills and sitting cross-legged in the void to absorb and refine the energy. He wanted to be in his peak state when he forcefully opened the restriction and unleashed his strongest combat strength. Jiang Tian and the others were far away from the forbidden area. Jiang Tian clasped his hands calmly and looked at the many restrictions. He said with his divine sense, "Mu Shue, I've taught you the math of supreme calculus and quaternary calculus for the past day. You've already understood a little. It should be no problem to calculate and break these Dharma arrays and restrictions. Come and try." These Dharma arrays and restrictions were at the divine level. They contained extremely profound mathematical knowledge, and their structure and operation were very ingenious. Their Dharma power was extremely powerful, and their changes were so complicated that it was difficult to measure. At least 100 nascent soul cultivators or incarnation grand cultivators would need to use all their cultivation to forcefully break them open. Some of the Dharma arrays and restriction components could instantly receive external attacks and quickly convert them into the power of the Dharma arrays and restrictions. They could be used to attack and defend and were extremely difficult to break open. There were even many self-destructing components. Once the Dharma arrays encountered an unbearable external attack, a dimensional storm would erupt and tear the entire forbidden area, including the pearl tree, into pieces. It would be extremely difficult to use them again. However, in the eyes of Jiang Tian, who had been to many modern cultivation planets in his previous life and whose knowledge of math had reached the peak, these Dharma arrays were too simple and crude. It was like a college student looking at elementary school math problems. Everything was easily solved. Therefore, Jiang Tian didn't plan to do it himself. Instead, he asked Bai Mu Shue, who was obsessed with math, to practice. "Yes, senior." Bai Mu Shue was very excited. If it were in the past, she wouldn't even dare to think about using Dharma arrays and restrictions at this level. But after being taught by Jiang Tian, she felt that her math level had reached an unimaginable level. She felt very confident and was eager to try. Bai Mu Shue made a series of hand seals and scanned the patterns of the Dharma arrays with her divine sense. She frowned and suddenly became enlightened. She was quickly calculating and analyzing the structure and flaws of the Dharma arrays. 15 minutes passed quickly. Everyone suddenly felt that the Dharma arrays seemed to be a little unstable and there were loopholes. Cheng Aojuan's face turned serious and he said coldly, "Fellow cultivators, there are abnormal fluctuations in the Dharma arrays and the Dharma arrays. They are chaotic and unstable. Everyone, let's work together and open the Dharma arrays." Su Ruoming noticed Jiang Tian and the others and said coldly, "You are just ants from the lower world. Leave quickly. Don't try to take advantage of us while we open the Dharma arrays and enter the forbidden area to search for treasures. Otherwise, we will kill you. You can't open it." Jiang Tian revealed a mocking expression as he chuckled. Su Ruoming's face turned cold and she wanted to kill Jiang Tian. "Fellow cultivators, don't just stand there. Let's attack the weak points together." Following Cheng Aojuan's order, many war gods from the academy, cultivators from the Tianmong Grotto Heaven, and even the overlords from the ruins Emperor's Palace attacked the Dharma arrays together. Su Ruoming glared at Jiang Tian and also joined in to break the Dharma arrays. There were more than 20 nascent soul heavenly lords and a few hundred golden core overlords in total. When they attacked together, it was earth-shattering and earth-shattering. However, no matter how hard they attacked, although the Dharma arrays seemed to be on the verge of breaking, they were still there. When the Dharma power of the Dharma arrays was reduced to a certain level, they kept increasing and became more stable. Some of the Dharma arrays were even activated and poisoned, killing 3 female golden core cultivators instantly. There were also light beams that shot out and turned a nascent soul heavenly lord into powder in a flash. In the blink of an eye, they had lost dozens of people. Their blood was boiling and their nascent souls and golden cores were about to crack, but it was still useless. Then, Cheng Aojuan waved his hand and said, "Everyone know. This Dharma array is evil and it has many changes. Let's study it again and find the real loophole." Damn it. The Dharma arrays left by bumpkins in the deity land in the ancient times are still so powerful after 10,000 years? Zhao Shanhe from the Tianmong Grotto heaven was enraged. He cursed, "I don't believe it. I have to destroy them." He waved his hand and a small bronze cauldron flew out. It became 1,000 feet tall and smashed towards the Dharma arrays like a mountain. This is the Xianwu cauldron of the Tianmong Grotto heaven. Legend has it that the ancestral master of the Tianmong Grotto heaven made it by an ancient soul formation cultivator. It contains all his achievements and can create Dharma fragments. It's a real mid-grade Dharma artifact. It can destroy everything and destroy everything. It's one of the 3 Dharma treasures of the Tianmong Grotto heaven. Everyone turned pale with fright. It seemed that Zhao Shanhe was really determined to win this time. He even brought the 3 Dharma artifacts of the Grotto heaven. Many people thought, a mid-grade Dharma artifact. It should be able to destroy the Dharma arrays. Even Cheng Aojuan was slightly moved. The other gods of war prodigies all looked envious. They were war gods, but they didn't have the bloodline of the Southgate planet. They were the descendants of the deity land and most of them came from second-class planets. Some even came from third-class planets. They might be as powerful as Zhao Shanhe, but they were definitely not as strong as him in terms of resources. After all, he had the support of a Grotto heaven. They weren't qualified to have a mid-grade Dharma artifact. They would be lucky if they could get an inferior grade or even a quasi-grade one. Boom! The Xianwu cauldron fell and the dimension below cracked. The turtle and the snake were entangled. The turtle and the dragon had 1,000 pairs of wings, flapping and opening their mouths. It was the Xianwu. The law of the black tortoise appeared, and Taoist rhymes filled the air. The great Tao resonated, and a mighty river appeared beneath the black tortoise's feet. Chapter 1546. Break it! In mid-air, Zhao Shanhe roared and activated the black tortoise's nomological laws. The river surged, and 5 thunderclouds rose from the river. 5 layers of clouds and 5 layers of thunder, wind, cloud, thunder, and lightning. The river was like a dragon, pressing down on the restriction with great momentum. The 6 grotto heavens of the ruins of immortality had all followed the ruins emperor to conquer the universe. The founder of the Tianmong Grotto heaven was a figure of the same generation as the ruins emperor. Even the headmaster and the heavenly river Star Lord had sat down and discussed the Tao with him. As his direct descendant and the future sect master, Zhao Shanhe had endless resources in the grotto heavens. He was also extremely powerful and famous in the ruins of immortality. He used his divine power on the head of the soaring serpent, while the black tortoise below let out a dragon roar. Its sharp teeth and claws tore the sky apart, sometimes dimming it and sometimes illuminating it with lightning. All of a sudden, the restrictive spell began to rumble. In the sky, a black and white Taiji diagram appeared. The yin and yang in it became extremely thin. Within the 2 extremes, yin and yang alternated. In the next moment, the endless nomological laws that Zhao Shanhe had used were easily destroyed by the restriction. The black tortoise cauldron was sent flying uncontrollably for hundreds of miles. It only stopped after crashing through a few mountains. Zhao Shanhe was also sent flying by the power of the restriction. His face was pale. When he took the black tortoise cauldron to take a look, he could not help but feel his heart ache. Many of the cauldron patterns on it had been destroyed, and there were even a few fine cracks. However, this also made everyone realize how terrifying this restriction was. No one dared to touch it easily. A few of the war god prodigies gathered together and discussed with their divine consciousness, studying the loopholes of this ancient restriction. Meanwhile, Bai Muxue turned a deaf ear to the changes in the outside world. Her eyes were slightly lowered as she carefully sensed and deduced the restriction in the steel forest. Finally, after another 5 minutes, a smile appeared on her pretty face. She said excitedly, "Senior, it's done. I know how to open it." "Let's try it." Jiang Tian nodded. Bai Muxue flew over and came to the edge of the forbidden area. She pointed in the air, and a stream of true essence shot towards a restriction. "Sister Roming, Senior Jiang and I, look at that woman." At this time, Everyone noticed Bai Mushue's presence and exclaimed in surprise. After all, the Academy's army, the Tianmong Grotto Heaven, and the Ruins Emperor's Palace were presiding over the area. They had all agreed that they could no longer attempt to forcefully crack the array. Otherwise, the consequences would be even more severe. Bai Mushue's bold move naturally attracted everyone's attention, and they were all stunned by what they saw. Su Ruoming leaped into the air and swung her sword at Bai Mushue's back without saying a word. "Bitch, is this yours? Who allowed you to touch it?" Bai Mushue was only a golden core cultivator. She could not withstand the attack at all. Su Ruoming's attacks were exceptionally ruthless and cold. After all, she came from the upper realm. When she came to Penglai, she was like a city dweller looking at a country bumpkin. No, it should be said that she was like a white middle class in a developed country coming to Africa. She thought that she was superior to others and treated the cultivators and mortals of this world as ants. She didn't care about anyone. If it's not hers, then it's yours? Jiang Tian frowned and pointed with his finger. He didn't use any Dharma laws, but his seventh metal true essence was too powerful. A finger aura was enough to kill a nascent soul cultivator. There was a loud boom. The sword aura and sword chi exploded. Su Ruoming staggered backward and spurted out a mouthful of blood. "You're a golden core cultivator?" Su Ruoming looked at Jiang Tian furiously. "Who is he? Why do I feel that he looks familiar?" Meanwhile, Cheng Aojuan, Su Changqing, Luo Changshan and the other elites on the God of War roll all looked at Jiang Tian suspiciously. They felt that Jiang Tian was very familiar. However, Jiang Tian's divine power to hide his energy and change his appearance was too powerful. Everything happened naturally and they didn't connect him to Jiang Tian. How dare a cultivator from Penglai act like a cockroach? Let me kill him. Luo Changshan was the youngest among the elites. He snickered and was about to attack Jiang Tian. Wait, let them try. Suddenly, Cheng Aojuan waved his hand and bowed to Jiang Tian and Bai Mushue. "If you can help us break the array, we'll reward you handsomely, okay?" "Yes, senior." Luo Changshan immediately restrained his energy and looked at Jiang Tian and the others coldly. He didn't say anything else. He wasn't one of them anyway. If he died, so be it. Furthermore, it was impossible for a mere golden core cultivator to cause too much of a backlash from the restriction and implicate everyone. But if they were lucky enough to break the array, everyone would be able to save energy, although the possibility of that was extremely low. Bai Mushue turned a deaf ear to all of this. Her face was calm and serene as she immersed herself in the mathematical deduction and breaking the formation. Her left hand's slender fingers were constantly making calculations, while her right hand flicked out white threads of true yuan from time to time, hitting the various components of the restrictive formation. After the time it took to brew a cup of tea, her forehead was already covered in fine sweat, to the extent where it was completely red and hot. This was the result of her divine sense operating at a high speed. However, the restriction magical power was still continuously gushing out, showing no signs of retreating. How can an ignorant cultivator from the lower worlds break the array? Luo Changshan was impatient and was about to kill. Suddenly, there was a series of loud noises as if a giant millstone was rotating above everyone's head. The powerful array's Dharma power suddenly receded and a giant hole appeared. Then, it receded again and again. In the end, the array's Dharma power within 1,000 miles disappeared without a trace. At this moment, many of the cultivators present were stunned. They had never thought that a female cultivator from the lower worlds would be able to break the array's ancient array. That feeling was like seeing a praying mantis overturn a giant chariot or a small ant break a tree. It was extremely shocking. "Senior, I didn't let you down. I did it." Bai Mushue waved her fists and jumped around like a child. She was so excited that her face turned red and her eyes curved into a beautiful crescent moon shape. No one had successfully broken the array of the steel forest for tens of thousands of years. Not only the Penglai world, but also the cultivators of Hylon and the ruins of immortality couldn't do it. If the array was the crown of all the divine powers in the cultivation world, then the array of the steel forest was the most dazzling jewel on the crown. And now, She had successfully broken the array in half an hour. How could she not be happy? You're very talented in math. I didn't give you advice for nothing, Jiang Tian said with a smile. Then Jiang Tian waved his hand and said, let's go. Let's go in. But let me remind you that we broke the array, so the pearl orchid tree must be mine. You can take the other treasures as you wish. He didn't stop the young talents from the ruins of immortality from entering. They weren't the main force of the ruins of immortality at all. Just like the student army that was recruited during a war, they weren't even a regular army and weren't worth mentioning at all. The real main force of the ruins of immortality was the 100 or so soul formation cultivators. The sect master of the Grotto Heaven, the Grand Chancellor of the Academy, the Great Sikong of the Sky Palace, and the old divine emperors of the ruins Emperor's Palace. But at this moment, Su Ruoming's figure flashed and blocked Jiang Tian's path. She stuck out her chest proudly and looked disdainfully at Jiang Tian as if she was looking at an ant. Get out. If you don't, I'll kill you. She didn't give any reason at all, as if it was only right to stop Jiang Tian from entering. Her tone was arrogant and unquestionable. You want to kill me with just you? Jiang Tian stopped and glanced at Qing Aojuan with a sneer. But the latter didn't care at all. She even glared at Jiang Tian, apparently acquiescing to Su Ruoming's actions. Jiang Tian sneered in his heart. He didn't want to kill those disciples of the academy, but it seemed that they thought his kindness was easy to bully. Of course, he's no match for you, but what if I, Luo Changxing, join forces? Luo Changxing took a step forward and looked down at Jiang Tian. His face was handsome, his lips were red, and his teeth were white. He looked like a refined scum. Senior sister Ruoming, senior brother Changxing is willing to fight for you. Is he interested in you? He must be. I saw him flirting with you just now. You can be senior brother Changxing's backup from now on. Women were always like that. Even the female cultivators who pursued immortality couldn't help gossiping. They all talked to each other with their divine consciousness. Seeing that Luo Changxing was backing her up, Su Ruoming became even more arrogant. Her nostrils flared up to the sky as she looked at Jiang Tian with disdain and said coldly, "You're just an ant from the lower worlds. You're like a frog at the bottom of a well. You don't know who senior brother Changxing is. He's an existence ranked in the top 5 of the Ruins of Immortality's War God rankings, a dignified intermediate stage nascent soul realm expert. Killing you is as easy as crushing an ant." Luo Changxing, your parents probably gave you this name because they wanted you to attain great accomplishments in cultivation and climb the long path to immortality, live forever, and live a long life. Jiang Tian pondered for a moment, and then he suddenly chuckled. But I'm afraid I'll have to disappoint them today. Aunt, what did you say? Luo Changxing roared with rage. I said you're about to die. Jiang Tian spoke, yet he didn't hold back in the slightest. He stretched out his hand and condensed an enormous golden palm, and then he grabbed Luo Changxing like an eagle grabbing a chick. Even if Luo Changxing roared madly and erupted with numerous divine abilities of the laws with the intention of struggling free, it didn't change at all. In the next moment, the enormous golden palm suddenly squeezed. Luo Changxing was like a rotten tomato that had been crushed by a robust man. His flesh and blood flew, crystalline broken bones and internal organs shot out, and even his soul and nascent soul were crushed into powder. At this moment, the entire scene was deathly silent, and even the sound of a falling needle could be heard. Only the whistling of the mountain wind, the rustling of the leaves, and the howls of the wild beasts in the distance were left. Everyone was shocked. Everyone had turned into a pile of clay and wooden statues that stood there without moving, and their faces were filled with shock and astonishment. No one had expected that Jiang Tian would actually be so formidable, and he directly crushed Luo Changxing with a light clench of his hand. Su Ruoming, who was nearby, was even sprayed with blood and minced meat, and she let out a sharp cry as if she'd gone mad. As a golden core cultivator, she was a person that killed people like flies. Of course, she wasn't frightened by the bloody scene, but was terrified of Jiang Tian's cultivation and strength. Jiang and I was first stunned when she saw this scene, and then she revealed a slightly puzzled expression. Then she seemed to have thought of something, and her pupils suddenly constricted while her face turned snow white, and she said with a trembling voice, "He's Kong Tae-chu." After all, she had fought with Jiang Tian face to face. Although Jiang Tian had changed his appearance and suppressed his cultivation, his temperament and habitual movements were ingrained in his bones, and it was difficult to change them. If Jiang Tian hadn't exposed his cultivation, Jiang and I might not have been able to tell. But now, Jiang Tian had crushed Luo Changxing and displayed strength comparable to that of a soul formation cultivator. She would be a fool if she still couldn't figure it out. Everyone couldn't believe what they heard. Chapter 1547. They did not expect Jiang Tian to rush to the Steel Forest Forbidden Grounds immediately after the battle at Fallen Leaf Lake. His reaction was too fast. "That's right. It's me." Jiang Tian used the spirit creation art. His facial bones and muscles squirmed as though they were alive, restoring his true appearance. He stood with his hands behind his back, looking down arrogantly as he said coldly, "Fellow Taoists, do you still want to stop me from entering the Steel Forest Forbidden Grounds?" Although everyone was trembling in fear, with some female cultivators even crying softly, no one dared to speak. They lowered their heads and submitted. A few of them looked in Princess Tingyu's direction with flickering eyes, revealing a troubled expression. The Ruins Emperor's lineage was extremely strict and had a strong imperial might. Further away, the Heaven Peak sect of the desert world had 100,000 cultivators and a training ground of 1,000 miles. However, because of a casual offense, the Ruins Emperor used a talisman decree to suppress the training ground by 200 miles. All of the disciples were turned into meat paste. Closer to them, Long Baxia of the Dragon Clan had entered the Ruins Emperor's palace to negotiate because his daughter had been captured. And the result? The sword god of the Ruins Emperor's palace thought he was too selfish and killed him on the spot. Prince Chiu Ming led the 3 guards to the lower realm and annihilated the entire clan. The Dragon Clan, which had thousands of years of history, was wiped out. It could be said that the Ruins Emperor's rule was too strict. Loyalty was the most important thing. Anyone who dared to betray him would die. Su Ruoming seemed to be unconvinced. Just as she was about to say something, Jiang Tian sent her flying with a slap. Half of her face was smashed. "Don't test my patience. Otherwise, all of you will die." Jiang Tian said softly, "We dare not. Fellow Taoist Taichu, please be magnanimous and forgive us for our offense." Finally, it was Jiang Tian who took the lead and bowed deeply to Jiang Tian, speaking with a face full of fear. She had an ambiguous relationship with Prince Chunyu, almost like a couple. Of course, she wanted to kill Jiang Tian to avenge Prince Chunyu. However, did she have the strength to do so? She had just crossed the threshold of soul formation. Strictly speaking, she was not even at the first level. However, Divine Emperor Hanshi, a soul formation divine lord, had been killed by Jiang Tian. If she were to make a move against Jiang Tian, she would only be sending herself to death. Cheng Aojuan, Su Changqing and the other heavenly talents were still hesitating, but after seeing Jiang Ni's attitude, they quickly knelt down and bowed. "We don't dare." Not to mention Su Ruoming and the other female Golden Core cultivators. Jiang Tian was able to kill a semi-god realm warrior. They were nothing but ants in front of Jiang Tian. They knelt on the ground, unwilling and humiliated. "He is Kong Tae-chu?" Zhao Shanhe, the Zongzi of the Tianmong Grotto Heaven, was stunned. As the son of the Heavenly Abode sect master, how could he not know of Jiang Tian's great name? He was simply a demon-like existence. "Why aren't you kneeling?" Jiang Tian glanced at the cloud tower where Zhao Shanhe and Princess Tingyu were and sneered, "Do you want to die?" With a plop, Zhao Shanhe could not withstand the pressure and fell to his knees. "Greetings, Your Excellency Kong Tae-chu." Princess Tingyu also walked out slowly and knelt on the ground unwillingly. Even though she gritted her teeth in hatred, she had no choice but to kneel and submit at this moment. After all, Jiang Tian was a terrifying being who had even killed Divine Emperor Hanshi. Her strength was still too far away from his. Then, Do you have any objections if I want to enter the Steel Forest Forbidden Ground? Jiang Tian looked around with his hands behind his back. Wherever he looked, whether it was Jiang and I, the heavenly talents on the God of War list, the children of Grotto Heavens or the princess of the Ruins Emperor's bloodline, they all bowed and said in a trembling voice, "We have no objections." The Steel Forest Forbidden Ground is an ancient treasure. Only a peak overlord like Senior Taichu is qualified to enter and occupy it. Zhao Shanhe even cupped his fists and said respectfully, "Kong Taichu, you are indeed here." Ha! Just as Jiang Tian was about to step in, all of a sudden, the mountains within 10,000 miles of the 10,000 feet mountain range began to tremble. The mountain peaks seemed to have come alive. From 10,000 feet to 10,000 feet, from 10,000 feet to tens of thousands of feet, they were like giant waves that lifted up a muscular man. Jiang Tian scanned with his divine sense. His pupils constricted slightly as he immediately stopped in his tracks. The burly man had used some kind of creation arcane art to control the mountain range and turn it into a living thing to help him move. He stepped on the mountain range and walked on the huge waves. His divine sense was abnormally powerful and mysterious. He must have reached the peak of artifact refinement. The burly man was dressed in rough leather clothes. His bare upper body was full of lumps of flesh. His broad chest was knotted like a dragon's muscles. He carried a huge hammer and his face was covered in dust. "I've been looking for you in the Penglai world for a day and turned it upside down. You are indeed a greedy person. You're here to seek treasures." He looked disdainful as he laughed. The sound waves were like a giant dragon emerging from the sea, shattering the space. Lightning flashed and the surrounding mountains collapsed. One roar could shatter mountains and rivers. Everyone was shocked. This was a divine transformation realm powerhouse. Ban Shan. He is the core disciple of the Academy's headmaster and is ranked 5th. He is a divine transformation realm Grand Chancellor. His body is strong and his strength is as great as a mountain. He is ranked 1st among the chancellors in the Academy in close combat. He is proficient in the Star Essence Fire Principle and the Creation Arcane Art. He is extremely powerful. Ghost Wolf's pupils constricted. His sinister face was extremely solemn as if he was facing a great enemy. The black raven feather robe fluttered and stirred the space. He held the air piercer tightly in his hand, causing circles of space ripples. Ban Shan, the headmaster's disciple? Jiang Tian narrowed his eyes. Jiang Tian saw through many of Ban Shan's dharma. Ban Shan was already at the middle stage of divine transformation realm, slightly stronger than divine Emperor Hanshi. But you think you can kill me by yourself? You are too weak. You know I have a peerless fairy weapon. If I use it, killing you will be as easy as slaughtering a dog. Jiang Tian smiled and transmitted his voice through divine sense. Kong Taichu, you are indeed powerful. You killed the 3 Golden Crow guards, Prince Chunyu, and Divine Emperor Hanshi. Such achievements and strength are almost comparable to the headmaster and the sword god of the Ruins Emperor Palace. In terms of one-on-one combat, I'm definitely not as good as you. But since we have lured you into the trap, why would a divine transformation realm cultivator like me appear in front of you? Ban Shan laughed loudly. His body was as majestic as a mountain and was surrounded by the solar essence fire, thunder, and other dharma. He was like a demon god that had descended. His aura was extremely powerful and seemed to be able to suppress the 9 heavens and 10 lands. Lured Kong Taichu into the trap? Many female disciples of the Academy, the heavenly talents of the gods of war, and even Zhao Shanhe of the Tianmong Grotto Heaven and Princess Tingyu trembled. Their faces darkened as they realized what had happened. We are just pawns that lured Kong Taichu into the trap. Princess Tingyu looked miserable and her eyes were dull. She said with a trembling voice, "The heavenly talents of the god of war role are the descendants of the abandoned people. Why would the Ruins Emperor Palace care about your life and death?" After suppressing the natives of the deity ground during the Age of Dao damage, the Tianmong Grotto Heaven once fought for power with the Ruins Emperor Palace. Although they were later suppressed by the Ruins Emperor and the Headmaster, They are still a thorn in the hearts of the upper echelons of the dynasty. They sent Zhao Shanhe to the lower worlds to be Kang Teichu's cannon fodder. Jiang En-ai is the princess of the royal family of the Western Liang world that was wiped out by the ruins of immortality. Although Prince Chun Yu dotes on her, the ruins Emperor Palace is still wary of her. They took the opportunity to use her as cannon fodder to lure Kang Teichu. If word got out, no one would suspect that the ruins Emperor Palace was trying to kill them all. As for me, I was the loser in the harem fight. Back then, Divine Emperor Hanshi wanted to kill me. Now that I've lured Kang Teichu here, I'm making the best use of everything. After Divine Emperor Hanshi died, the overlords he sent to this world were all pawns to lure Kang Teichu. After all, Jiang Tian already had the strength of a soul formation grand cultivator and was extremely difficult to kill. Besides, overlords at that level were proficient in divine powers such as hiding, chi concealment, creation, and disguise. If Jiang Tian really wanted to hide, they wouldn't be able to find him even if they turned the entire Prenglai world upside down. If they wanted to end the battle quickly, they had to strike accurately. They had to find a few cannon fodders and move around the Prenglai world in a big way to lure Jiang Tian out. The real masters would hide in the dark and follow those cannon fodders. When Jiang Tian appeared, they would surround him and kill him. That was the most likely way to win. There's another soul formation cultivator, Ghost Wolf, by Muxue, Sword Highness Outyan, Zhang Qingyang, and the others were astounded. When Jiang Tian killed Divine Emperor Hanshi, who was at the second level of the soul formation realm, he had used all 9 Dharma laws and was on the verge of using the heavenly sword. This time, Ban Shan was already slightly stronger than Divine Emperor Hanshi, but there were more soul formation cultivators working together to kill him. Jiang Tian might have to use the heavenly sword. Even if he did, he might not be able to win. Chapter 1548. When the plum blossoms are falling, frogs are everywhere in the pond. If you have an appointment, you won't come in the middle of the night. You're playing chess. Right at this moment, a leisurely and elegant chanting voice sounded out. A black and white rainbow pierced through the heavens and earth, traveling thousands of miles in the blink of an eye, rapidly approaching from the far east. The black and white aura tore the sky apart like a supersonic fighter and descended. He saw a man in green robes sitting cross-legged on a huge chessboard. Black and white round chess pieces floated around him, making loud noises. "Brother Black and White, you're late." Ban Shan cupped his hands and smiled. "I've been away for a long time. I met 2 old men playing chess in a small town and had a game with them. Luckily, I didn't miss the important thing." The man in an azure outfit smiled and tapped the chess pieces leisurely. He frowned and stared at the chessboard, as if he were a famous scholar in the Wei and Jin dynasties. "Black and White. He's the disciple of the headmaster of the academy and he used to be a grand chancellor. I heard that he's been away for 1,000 years. He's finally here," Ghost Wolf said with his immortal will. This man entered the Tao through chess. He experienced the changes of life and death and understood yin and yang. He formed his own unique chess rules and understood the great Tao. His laws and great Taos, every move is full of changes and unpredictable. Only when you're full and have nothing to do can you play chess, Jiang Tian said with disdain. Chess is just a small Tao. It's not worth mentioning. The 2 of them are far from enough to kill me. Yin and Yang, the 4 symbols, the celestial phenomenon and the changes of the 5 elements were all in the world. You could have just understood nature. Why did you have to use abstract chess to simulate your understanding? You're already at a disadvantage. What if I join them? As soon as Jiang Tian said that, a dazzling sword aura that resembled a dragon's roar shot over from afar. The sword aura sliced through the sky at the speed of light and landed in front of everyone, revealing a white-haired man in a white robe that fluttered in the wind. His aura was extremely sharp. The 3rd soul formation cultivator. Everyone was stunned. 3 soul formation cultivators were here. What did that mean? In the Hailan world, the fertile land world and the desert world, Not a single soul formation cultivator had been born in the past 10,000 years. Even in the boundlessly vast ruins of immortals, which used chi drawing arrays to forcibly gather the spirit chi of many worlds, there were no more than 100 divine transformation stage cultivators. The 100 soul formation cultivators were still unevenly scattered across the ruins Emperor's Palace, Sky Palace, 100 Moon Academy, and the 6 Grotto Heavens. Some sects, Grotto Heavens and states might only have 1 or 2 soul formation cultivators or none at all. In the end, in this small world of Pringlai, including Jiang Tian, for divine transformation realm experts had gathered in front of the steel forest forbidden grounds. This was simply earth-shattering. Once news of this spread out, it would surely shock the world. So it's really a trap. Jiang and I, who was lying on the ground, slightly trembled as she murmured, "We are only a pitiful worm that attracted Kong Taechu here. As for our survival, the upper echelons of the ruins Emperor Palace do not care at all." At that moment, the 3 strengthened deities had yet to release their Dharma power and divine powers, but the power they naturally emitted was already making their bones creak. Even Zhao Shanhe, Qing Aojuan and the other geniuses were trembling in fear. Their legs felt like jelly. As for Su Ruoming and the other female cultivators, they were already lying on the ground in fear. They had already forgotten about Yu Qilin and Prince Spring Rain's revenge. Even Princess Tingyu was trembling all over. If it weren't for Jiang Tian's protection with the wind, Bai Muxue and Long Xingnan would not have been able to withstand the power. They would have only been able to crawl on the ground. A divine transformation realm cultivator's nascent soul had turned into a divine treasure that contained a deity. It resonated with the great Tao of heaven and earth and controlled the great Tao fragments. Ordinary nascent soul cultivators would be like mortals facing a deity. They would not be able to withstand that terrifying power. The sword god of the ruins Emperor Palace? Jiang Tian's eyes were slightly cold. He looked at the cultivator on the sword who was surrounded by sword chi dharma and even had the aura of the great Tao of sword. Was this person the #1 sword Tao expert in the ruins of immortality, the legendary sword god of ruins Emperor's Palace who came from the depths of the Starry Sea? He did not look like one. His great Tao fragment was still at the star level, which meant that he was unable to walk out of a star. He was only on par with the 2 Grand Chancellors of the Academy. The sword god of ruins Emperor's Palace came from the depths of the Starry Sea. The great Tao he comprehended should be even more powerful. He naturally could not reach the universe level, but he should at least touch the great Tao of a star system level. What kind of person is my master? Back then, he was on par with teacher and could compete with him. Now, he has reached the void reversion realm. You alone are not enough for him to come out of seclusion personally. The cultivator on the sword looked down arrogantly. Today, the 3-foot-long sword in my hand is enough to slay you. He was not the sword god of ruins Emperor's Palace. He was only his servant. Long Shengnan by Muxue, sword venerable Outyin, and company were all stunned. The servants of the sword god of ruins Emperor's Palace had all reached the soul formation realm. They were comparable to Headmaster's disciples. It was no wonder that the sword god was as famous as Headmaster and Star-Lord Heavenly River in the ruins of immortality. They were the top 3 powerhouses of the ruins of immortality. Sword Servant, killing Kong Taechu is our highest mission. You almost came too late. What if he escapes? Ban Shan snorted unhappily. Before coming to this world, I made a trip to the fertile earth world and killed a few half-step soul formation cultivators who did not listen to the orders of the ruins Emperor's Palace. I don't want them to think that the ruins Emperor's Palace is a pushover and has no authority if my master does not appear for a long time. The man on the sword said casually. At that moment, the fertile earth world was in chaos. The sword god's servant had descended to the lower realm to kill. He swept through the fertile earth world and killed 2 half-step soul formation cultivators in a row, forcing the cultivators of the entire star system to submit. Previously, the fertile earth world that was gradually leaning towards Jiang Tian because of Wu Shujian's lobbying quickly returned to the control of the ruins Emperor's Palace. Kong Taechu, the ancient treasure, is here. To be honest, there are countless such treasures in the ruins of deity. It's not rare at all. The sword servant turned around and looked at Jiang Tian. If you sign a divine soul contract with us right now and swear never to offend the ruins of deity again, I'll let you live. We will let you live. The below sea world will belong to you, and we will even promote you to become an important minister of the immortal ruins empire. Otherwise, don't blame us for bullying you with our numbers. Ban Shan bared his teeth and laughed menacingly. His energy was vast. The gods in the divine treasures roared and many fragments of the grand Tao shook. Many cultivators looked at Jiang Tian with fear in their eyes, not knowing what he would do. 3 soul formation cultivators working together. That was a rare battle. Even in the ruins of deity, a battle between soul formation cultivators was extremely rare, let alone 3 soul formation cultivators attacking one person. Although Jiang Tian was famous for killing Divine Emperor Hanshi, who was also a soul formation cultivator, facing 3 more powerful soul formation cultivators at the same time, Kang Taichu will definitely die. This is an earth-shattering trap. Both the 100 Moon Academy and the Ruins Emperor's Palace have invested a lot. Ban Shan, the best cultivator in close combat, object controlling and artifact refining, the Black and White Chess Master and the Sword God Servant are all people who have shocked the world. That Sword Servant has obviously inherited the true teachings of the Sword God of the Ruins Emperor's Palace. He's definitely not someone to be trifled with. Kang Taichu only has 2 choices, either he dies or kneels and surrenders. Many experts thought to themselves. 3 soul formation cultivators. Jiang Tian looked down and didn't say a word for a long time, as if he had run out of ideas. When Su Ruoming saw this, she stood up in an arrogant and domineering manner. She let out a peal of laughter that sounded like silver bells and said arrogantly, Kang Taichu, kneel and surrender. 3 soul formation grand cultivators are here. How can a cultivator from a peripheral planet resist them? She thought Jiang Tian wouldn't dare to resist and would only surrender and beg for mercy, so she wasn't afraid at all and jumped up again. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.